Chapter 653, The Dragon King Preaching Tao 1. Chapter 653, The Dragon King Preaching Tao 1. Roar, roar, roar. The violent roars, the terrifying devilish aura, and the blood-boiling battle. This is? Wang Xian was shocked to see the battle in the dragon field as he turned to look around him. Around him, various Dragon Palace members stared intensely at the battle between Roving Heavens and Roving Wuxia on the dragon field. The Wuxia race, Anomalocrous race and Mysterious Demon race were frowning as they watched the battle. However, the Devil Monkey race was completely different. All the members of the Devil Monkey race could feel the strong battle desires from their leader. Their eyes were slightly red and their hairs stood up. The terrifying battle will was released without any intention of masking it. Those with dark attributes favored battle from birth. The more they fought, the more excited they would get. Fresh blood made their own blood boil. The more they fought, the braver and stronger they would get. Wang Xian looked into the field. When the battle started, Roving Heavens was constantly being knocked back by Roving Wuxia's water energy. However, as the battle went on, huge fangs appeared in Roving Heavens' mouth. His eyes were also starting to turn red. All his hair stood up and the speed of the metal rod in his hand grew faster and faster with escalating strength. Gradually, Roving Wuxia could only defend passively. When it came to defending, Roving Wuxia was indeed better. He was adept in diverting the brunt of the attack as he manipulated water waves to redirect powerful attacks. However, passive defending would eventually lead to defeat. After 10 minutes, Roving Wuxia lost. Roving Heavens didn't stop there. He continued the challenge and fought more and more bravely. One venomous sea snake charged towards and attacked Roving Heavens. The venomous sea snake was exceptionally fast. Those who were weaker could only see a green shadow moving across. When facing the venomous sea snake in battle, Roving Heavens suffered several wounds within a short period of several tens of seconds. However, when his violent body was completely covered in pitch-black dragon scale armor, the outcome of the battle soon became clear. When the devil monkeys rage, their blood boils and the divine dragon bloodline in them will be completely triggered. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. Looking at the illusory vision of a divine dragon on Roving Heavens, he was completely astounded. When his bloodline was completely triggered, he could even challenge those that were stronger than him. He was even stronger when compared to the venomous sea snake who possessed the wind divine dragon bloodline. Let me give it a try. Roving Demon flexed and disappeared from everyone's vision without a trace. Roving Heavens observed his surroundings in shock. Assassination. The true assassination. Wang Xian was slightly surprised. Even he couldn't sense where the traceless Roving Demon was. This was indeed frightening. Roving Heavens was hit several times consecutively and wounds the size of a fist appeared across his chest. However, when Roving Heavens closed his eyes, Wang Xian realized a unique talent of the devil monkey. Their ears were shaking constantly. Bam. When Roving Demon attacked, Roving Heavens met him directly. Roving Demon had to show itself when he attacked. When he saw Roving Heavens meet him directly, he was astonished and was knocked back several steps. According to the legends, the dragon has 9 sons with different talents. Those powerful descendants are not any weaker than their father. Now that we have inherited the essence blood from the Dragon King, we are unique sons of the dragon. As we cultivate, we will awaken different abilities. Beside Wang Xian, Prime Minister Turtle explained, after Roving Sword broke through to level 13, it triggered part of his divine dragon bloodline and he obtained the unique talent of Metal Edge Body. As for Roving Heavens, despite not reaching level 13, he has triggered even more of his bloodline than Roving Sword. Wang Xian was enlightened. He looked into the field and said, the talents of Roving Heavens are indeed a little unique. I wonder what kind of abilities he will be granted. Prime Minister Turtle also looked ahead curiously. Defeat. Defeat. Roving Heavens challenged Roving Wuxia Venomous Sea Snake, and Roving Demon consecutively and defeated all of them. This had completely exceeded Wang Xian's expectations. Roving Lobster and Roving Girl had just reached level 12. It wouldn't be necessary for them to participate in the battle as they wouldn't be a match either. As for the following battle, the strength of the leader of the Anomalocrous race had also exceeded Wang Xian's expectation. His fist was fast and furious and carried powerful electric powers. He was just as mighty and powerful as the Thunder God. It seems like Lady Luck is really shining on me. The Devil Monkey race and Anomalocrous race aren't as weak as I had expected. Wang Xian was pleasantly surprised. In the Dragon Palace, roving heavens was the strongest, followed by the 9 venomous sea snakes. Subsequently, it would be roving demon and the budding realm experts of the mysterious demon race, roving Wuxia, and the newly advanced roving lobster and roving girl. Roving Wuxia being relatively weaker was within Wang Xian's expectation. His strength lay in group attacks. The Wuxia's talents were in teamwork. When working together with their race members, they could launch terrifying attacks that were far beyond what they could do individually. Following this was the battles between Dragon Palace members below level 12. The entire grand contest lasted for 2 days and Wang Xian stood by the side all along while watching. They would form the foundation of the Dragon Palace and he had rather high expectations for them. Prime Minister Turtle and Roving Heavens, follow me. After the grand contest had ended, Wang Xian spoke to them in a solemn voice. Yes, Dragon King. Prime Minister Turtle and Roving Heavens followed Wang Xian to the Dragon King Hall, feeling a little excited. I'll raise both of your strength to level 13. Wang Xian waved his arm and dense streams of dragon energy flowed into their bodies. This dragon energy was extracted entirely from the pure blood corals and would be sufficient to raise 2 people to the immortal realm. Growling Gur. Huge changes were happening on the bodies of Roving Heavens and Prime Minister Turtle. Prime Minister Turtle reverted to his initial form. His huge 10-meter body gradually grew to 15 meters and the pattern on his shell deepened and became clearer. There were patterns of the sun, moon, and stars, and one would be able to tell that it was extraordinary with a single look. As for Roving Heavens, he grew 2 additional ears. This greatly surprised Wang Xian. Thank you, Dragon King. Terrifying auras emanated from their bodies. They went down on their knees and shouted respectfully. Roving Heavens, who had reached the immortal realm, would be able to grow to roughly 2 meters. He manipulated the 7-meter metal rod in his hands and stuffed it within his ears directly. Wang Xian was stunned to witness it. Sun Wukong? 2. However, there was a difference between Sun Wukong and Roving Heavens. For the great sage equaling heaven, Sun Wukong, he simply shrank his golden rod. For Roving Heavens, it was because of the powerful ability of his ears. I might really be able to raise a devil monkey capable of destroying worlds in the future. Wang Xian thought to himself and couldn't help but smile. Dragon King, I believe there's one more thing we should do now. At this moment, Prime Minister Turtle wiggled his body. To Wang Xian's astonishment, Prime Minister Turtle shed his turtle shell, shrank it and held it in his hand. He caressed his turtle shell as he spoke to Wang Xian. What's the matter? Wang Xian looked at Prime Minister Turtle. Wang Xian was completely convinced of Prime Minister Turtle's intelligence at this moment. Having an old and wise official proposing and executing plans for him was a great thing for him. Preaching Dao. 3. Preaching Dao. Wang Xian was a little confused. That's right, it's about preaching Dao. In the legends of China, a saint preaching Dao could enlighten thousands and grant intelligence to countless living creatures. All living creatures are capable of cultivation. Dragon King, you could preach Dao in the Dragon Palace. The billions of marine creatures within the region of the Dragon Palace could listen in. Through preaching Dao, their intelligence might be manifested. Even if they failed to do so, they would still be able to roughly understand the concept of cultivation. Perhaps there will be a day that they undergo a metamorphosis and their chances of leaping through the Dragon Gate will be higher. Chapter 654, The Dragon King Preaching Dao 2. Chapter 654, The Dragon King Preaching Dao 2. Preaching Dao. Upon hearing what Prime Minister Turtle said, Wang Xian was shaken once again. Establishing an empire was shocking enough for him. Preaching Dao like the saints in the olden days? He never dared to have this thought. Preaching Dao is to educate the billions of marine creatures. Education is not so simple as you think. Prime Minister Turtle lowered his head and stared at the palm-sized shell in his hand. For marine creatures, it is difficult for them to activate their spiritual intelligence. They must have an enlightenment. Most importantly, this is to lay a strong foundation for the Dragon Palace members. Of course, we wouldn't take that long to develop into a stage similar to human beings with the resources in the ocean. Human civilization development took thousands of years to reach where it is today. In fact, the cultivation of humans has occurred for over 1,000 years. With the guidance of the Dragon Palace in the ocean and your preaching of Dao, billions of marine creatures will be able to transform into dragons within a century. Perhaps there will be immortals all over the sea after a century. But of course, the prerequisite is to have sufficient resources. Prime Minister Turtle's eyes were beaming with wisdom. The turtle shell in his hand was glowing with mustard radiance. Wang Xian was startled. Just as Prime Minister Turtle said, humans took thousands of years to develop civilization on land, while there was none in the sea. What could be the possible reason for this? Were the marine creatures too dumb? If he could preach Tao and enlighten billions of marine creatures, then they could also form a civilization. Oceans occupied 70% of Earth's surface. Thus, the resources were several times more than what could be found on land. The time to establish a civilization might be shortened by 10 times. Prime Minister Turtle, what's that turtle shell in your hand for? Asked Wang Xian with curiosity as he stared at the shell that was giving off a mustard glow. Changes on Earth bring the rise of civilization, and the planet is made up of everything on Earth. I sensed something mystical from this turtle shell of mine, just like it was describing the planet's changes. Prime Minister Turtle murmured, and he seemed unsure of what exactly his shell did. In that case, you'll organize the session and I'll preach Tao. Wang Xian nodded and spoke to Prime Minister Turtle. Yes, Dragon King. Prime Minister Turtle nodded immediately and went off to settle it. Wang Xian cast a glance at Roving Heavens, who looked like an evil monkey ready to wreak havoc. He grinned and said, "The devil monkeys are rather weak now. You guys have to do more training." Yes, Dragon King. The Devil Division will become the strongest unit in the Dragon Palace from now on. Roving Heavens answered with respect as he headed out with determination. Wang Xian was very satisfied as he watched Roving Heavens. Xiao Xian, fights are going on in the Underworld. Sui family and Xiao family are seeking your assistance. At this time, Lan Qingyue and the other girls flitted over as soon as they saw him finishing his business. What happened? Wang Xian was puzzled as he looked at them. Now the overseas factions have taken over MT Taibai. All the people from the Underworld have either been killed or expelled from there. They are now occupying that area with haughtiness. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan would like you to strike as those foreign guys are simply too arrogant. They want you to chase them away, said Lan Qingyue and Xiao Yu. Really? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes slightly. If they are international forces, they must be from Asia. Yes, from Japan, India, Korea, and other international forces. Elder Fang nodded. The news about MT Taibai has been going around. Given the Underworld strength, it's impossible for them to protect that place. Hence, it's been taken over by a group of overseas forces. And those people were extremely cocky. They kept saying China has no talents and calling us names like sick man of East Asia. Xiao Xian, should we go and teach them a lesson? Elder Fang was slightly infuriated as she spoke. The rest of the girls were also elated to fight it out with them. Sick man of East Asia? Wang Xian revealed a faint smile as coldness flashed in his eyes. Yes, we should go. But I need another 2 days to preach Tao to these billions of marine creatures here. Preaching Tao? Awesome. Our Dragon King will definitely live a long life and enjoy a lifetime of prosperity. Xiao Yu brightened up her eyes and giggled. Wang Xian patted her head. This concerns the future development of Dragon Palace. Reply to Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan and tell them that I'll be back in 2 days. Sure. Xiao Yu nodded. I'll reply to them. Brother, when will sister-in-law Shuqing wake up? I'm not sure. Shuqing is full of strong vitality now, as daunting power is hidden within her body. After she wakes up, she might be more powerful than me. But I'm not sure why she is still in her sleep. This is the first time that I've seen a phoenix nirvana. Wang Xian sighed as he looked at Guan Shuqing, who was lying quietly on his dragon throne. She was shrouded in the flames of the boundless branch, but no one knew the reason why she was still sleeping. Shuqing is fine and she'll wake up one day. You don't have to worry. Lan Qingyue and Ajaya consoled them. Wang Xian nodded. He was not that worried since they would find a way to wake her up as long as she was full of vitality. Let's go. We should get some rest now. Wang Xian, who had not rested for 3 days, took Lan Qingyue, Ajaya, and Sun Lingxiu back to his royal residence hall. Xiao Yu could not help but roll her eyes. After a session of lovemaking, Wang Xian lay on his bed and rested. Dragon King, Prime Minister Turtle said the class is ready. You may begin your preaching. After a dozen hours, Roving Girl's voice was heard outside of the room. Prime Minister Turtle had specially arranged for Roving Girl to provide morning call services similar to the role of a maidservant in Dragon Palace. Wang Xian could not help but feel that Prime Minister Turtle would be a competent majordomo in the future. Great. As soon as Wang Xian's voice was heard, he walked out of his royal residence hall. But he was astonished when he came to the surroundings of the Dragon Palace. Billions of marine creatures in myriad colors and forms were packed around him. The number of marine creatures was 10 times more than those that had been there when they did the leap at the Dragon Gate. 8-meter sharks, 10-meter killer whales, close to 20-meter whales, and different forms of marine creatures were swimming around him. Countless living creatures filled the space around him for more than 10 kilometers. It was extremely scary when one looked at it. Xiao Lan, 70 meters in size, was slowly swimming above the Dragon Palace, exuding an imposing might. All the marine creatures remained peaceful as they floated around with discipline. All of you are citizens of my Dragon Palace. To the countless living creatures, I, the Dragon King, will be preaching Tao today to kickstart and enlighten your path towards cultivation. Wang Xian made a move and transformed into a divine dragon. He slowly landed on top of Xiao Lan, above the Dragon Palace. His mighty roar traveled through the 4 seas. Chapter 655, Get Out of the Territory of China, 1. Chapter 655, Get Out of the Territory of China, 1. All of you are citizens of my Dragon Palace. To the countless living creatures, I, the Dragon King, will be preaching Tao today to kickstart and enlighten your path towards cultivation. A voice with a majestic aura entered the minds of every marine animal in the sea. The divine dragon was the king of the marine races. He could understand any languages of marine animals. At the same time, his words could reach the minds of every single type of marine race. This was the powerful talent of the divine dragon race. This was also a terrifying ability of the ruler of the marine animals. Around them, billions of marine animals shivered. They looked towards Wang Xian and felt respect and fear that originated from their very core. Wang Xian rested his body against Xiao Lan. The huge 70-meter Kuan hovered in the water without moving an inch. This scene made countless marine animals even more fearful and respectful towards the Dragon King. The cultivation path of marine animals starts with absorbing the spiritual energy within heaven and earth. Today I'll impart all of you with the path of cultivation. Wang Xian's voice entered the minds of each and every marine animal. This group of billions of marine animals couldn't understand what Wang Xian was preaching. Only a very vague concept lingered in their minds. Wang Xian couldn't do anything about it at all. However, all he was trying was to place a seed within the billions of marine animals. This seed would gradually germinate as they grew stronger and eventually reap the rewards. For the cultivation arts of the marine animals, Wang Xian imparted upon them the simplest way of absorbing spiritual energy. Absorbing spiritual energy from heaven and earth and digesting spiritual energy. Wang Xian had only imparted these 2 methods. Despite wanting to achieve more, imparting too many methods might overwhelm these fishes which did not possess intelligence yet and wouldn't be able to memorize most of these methods. He spoke really slowly. With just a thought, image after image appeared within the minds of various marine animals. Billions of marine animals remained stationary and silent. Some marine animals even closed their eyes. It was especially so for dolphins, tiger whales, and other marine animals who had relatively higher intelligence. They were trying to memorize and understand deeper. The preaching of Tao will end here for today. The next session will be announced by the Dragon Palace again. If you wish to become stronger and become a true ruler, cultivate diligently. Wang Xian said slowly, "My citizens, you are dismissed." Whoosh. When Wang Xian finished his last sentence, the marine animals at the edges moved and swam away. Sea turtles, sea snakes, fish, sea leopards, sea horses, and others left rapidly in an orderly manner. I wonder how many marine animals among the billions could cultivate, become experts of the marine races and leap through the Dragon Gate. Wang Xian mumbled to himself. He moved and entered the Dragon Palace. Now that the seed had been planted, they had to rely on their own encounters. Since he had started on his first session of preaching Tao, Wang Xian was prepared to host more sessions at regular intervals. At the same time, he could check on the progress of evolution for these marine animals. "Xiao Xian, has it ended?" Seeing Wang Xian flying over, Lan Qingyue asked. "Yeah, I'm done. Let's head back to China." Wang Xian nodded his head and said to the girls. "All right." The 5 girls nodded their heads happily. Xiao Yu even clenched her fists excitedly and said, "I'm going to occupy an entire mountain for my Thistles and Thorns sect. All hail the Queen of the Thistles and Thorns sect." Lan Qingyue and the girls chuckled and flew away. Roving Sword didn't follow this time. He was heading towards the disordered region with roving heavens to suppress the Manta Ray King. The Dragon Palace wanted the entire disordered region to be under its control. That would be a relatively more important piece of land for the Dragon Palace to obtain resources. Let's go. Xiao Yu and the rest stood at the top deck of the yacht. They extended their arms in excitement as the yacht steered towards River Town. Taibai was the separation line for northern and southern China. It lay in the central region of China. This was also the largest mountain range in China. As for Mt. Taibai, it was also one of the most well-known mountains in all of China. Mt. Taibai was an exceptionally famous scenic spot. At this moment, the entire Mt. Taibai was just like an immortal region. From a long distance away, one could see spiritual energy flowing down like a waterfall. Below it, a dozen-odd mountain peaks were shrouded within the spiritual energy. Among them, the tallest peak also had the densest concentration of spiritual energy. Spiritual energy entered the mountain range as though it was water. Around the base of these mountains, countless martial artists sat on the ground and were absorbing spiritual energy frantically. Spiritual energy could cleanse one's channels and meridians. When immersed in such terrifyingly dense spiritual energy, it wouldn't take more than 5 days for a level 9 martial artist to reach the inborn realm. As for inborn experts, they would be able to reach the Dan realm within 1 to 2 months under the cleansing of the terrifyingly dense spiritual energy. Ordinary martial artists could cleanse the impurities within their bodies simply by being below it. Chance encounter. A terrifyingly insane chance encounter. For the majority of martial artists in the underworld, this was definitely the greatest chance encounter they could possibly have. Yet, at this very moment, over 10,000 people had gathered on a mountain beside Mt. Taibai. All the martial artists in the entire underworld had gathered. There were even some wealthy moguls who had come. The group looked extremely gloomy. Those groups of bastards occupied each mountain and didn't allow us to get close. For those who can't occupy a mountain, they still prohibited us from going over. They should know that they are in the territory of China. What should we do? Dear Laosis from various sacred clans and sects, are we just going to watch them occupy this bountiful land and seize resources that belong to us? They killed several dozens of my Qingfeng sect just because of a dispute and humiliated our female disciples. Dear Laosis from various sacred clans and sects, you've got to teach them a lesson for us. Beside the mountain, various martial artists of the underworld remarked furiously and sorrowfully as they looked at the Laosis from their sacred clans and sects. Haze. The difference in strength between them and us is truly too huge. We aren't a match for them at all. They are simply too strong for us. An old man from Reed Spirits of Diabolism pulled a long face and heaved a sigh. Currently there were only 3 remaining sacred clans in the underworld: Sui clan, Xiao clan and Gu clan. Qiao clan and Donghua clan had been annihilated by the Dragon King. As for sacred sects, it was even more pathetic. Only the Sacred Followers Guild, Imperial Beast Sect, Sacred Seas of Swords and Reed Spirits of Diabolism still existed. As for the remaining sacred sects and powerful sects under Diabolism, they were all annihilated by the Dragon Sect. Reed Spirits were the strongest among them with 3 Dan Realm experts. As for the rest, they only had 1 each. However, Imperial Beast Sect and Sacred Seas of Swords weren't here, and the guild leader of the Sacred Followers Guild wasn't here either. There was only a total of 5 Dan Realm experts. This was because the Gu clan was annihilated by a force from overseas 2 days before. The Dan Realm expert from Gu clan was killed by a single strike. When the Gu clan was annihilated and the Dan Realm expert was killed, all the martial artists in the underworld were shocked. When various overseas forces looked down from above, all of them could only retreat from that place. They didn't dare to make any retaliation. If they were to say a single no, they would be killed on the spot. Several overseas forces even mocked them as the sick man of Asia. Yet all they could do was to endure the mockery. Chapter 656, Get Out of the Territory of China, 2. Chapter 656, Get Out of the Territory of China, 2. The current underworld was too weak. Ever since the various sacred sects and clans were annihilated by Dragon Sect, their strength was weakened by more than half as compared to before. At present there were no orthodox sects or diabolism, as the 2 leaders were dead. The underworld was back to their peaceful days. After the catastrophe of Dragon Sect annihilating most of the underworld's clans and sects, the remaining martial artists lived in peace together. Even in the face of international factions, they had come together to fend off their common enemies. However, the difference between both parties was too huge. The international factions were totally overkilling. However, all the local martial artists were unwilling to leave this place and give up this golden opportunity. Sui Huang, old Xiao, did you too inform Dragon King? What's his reply? A sect leader from a first-class force could not help but ask Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan in the middle. As soon as he finished his question, the surroundings were plunged into silence. Dragon King had become the unspeakable person of the entire underworld after he annihilated so many people, dealing a massive blow to the underworld. They had reverence and fear for the Dragon King and Dragon sect. I contacted him 2 days ago. He said he'll come as soon as possible. Sui Huang looked at the surrounding crowd and spoke in a low voice. I guess even the Dragon King is no match for them. An inborn expert sighed as he spoke with a complicated look. The Dragon King was indeed compelling, and Dragon sect was invincible in the underworld. But when they spun around and looked at the dozens of peaks at the side, they had only fear in their eyes. More than a dozen mountains around them were shaved in half. They could not help but quiver at the sight of the horrifying scene. That was what happened after experts from 2 international factions fought. Back then there were 8 experts in combat. The sky was darkened. The whole world lost its color while the mountain peaks broke in half with a slash from the experts. They used to think that the imposing aura displayed by the 4 elders in the pictures posted on the forum was stunning enough. However, that battle was even more ghastly to them. Looking at the pictures and witnessing with their own eyes were 2 different things. When they sensed the mightiness, they almost went down on their knees. Yes, those 4 elders were on par with them. However, there are about 13 such people on their side. From what I heard, they aren't the most powerful ones in the group. Another inborn expert nodded in agreement. This bunch of international factions who occupied their blessed ground by force was much stronger than they had imagined. They were multiple times more powerful than the underworld before the massacre. Those above Dan Realm are known as Budding Realm. The group of people who fought 2 days ago were all Budding Realm experts. The powerful experts that they mentioned are not here. They have been intercepted and stopped by the guardian divine beasts of China, said Xiao Quanshan slowly. The underworld might be weak, but relics were often discovered at this place. To all the factions in Asia, the underworld was an excellent treasure ground. However, their entry to the underworld was restricted by the presence of guardian divine beasts all the while. Without the guardian divine beasts, the underworld would belong to other factions of the world. Even so, the top forces of Asia had not stopped sending their experts over. Even though the most supreme class experts were not here, the entire underworld could still not put up a resistance. Does that mean that nothing can be done even if Dragon King were here? A middle-aged man could not help but ask. Perhaps we can claim back 1 mountain. But apparently, it has nothing to do with us. A Dan Realm expert from Reed Spirits replied in a stern voice. Everyone was dejected by his words and their faces formed dreadful expressions. In their opinion, Dragon Sect's strength was at most equivalent to 6 flaming elders. 6 of them were already terrifying. But compared to those experts occupying the mountains here, it was still far off from them. Boom. At this time, a horrible-looking palm was coming their way. The palm was 100 meters in size, exuding a daunting yellow glow. It swept directly in their location. Oh no, get out of the way now. Seeing the incoming palm, Sui Huang was aghast as he hurriedly screamed. Thousands of people had a change in their expressions as they quickly dodged to the side. However, there were hundreds of people who did not manage to escape from the gigantic palm and were smashed into flat meat. Haha, I advanced. Awesome. At this time, an old man from MT Taibai let out hysterical laughter as he exclaimed. His voice traveled over 10 kilometers. The group of martial artists from the underworld grimaced upon hearing his untamed laughter. Their eyes were filled with trepidation when they saw the 100-meter palm mark and the blood on the ground. Just a casual swing and a palm of 100 meters landed beside them. From their perspective, this daunting strength was like the work of an immortal. Trashy martial artists from China, get lost now. The arrogant voice from the old man was heard again while another 100-meter palm came sweeping in from 2,000 meters away. Run! Sui Huang shouted out as he ran to the foot of the mountain swiftly. Haha, poor doggies. Useless bunch of sickening dogs, stay out of our way. Otherwise we'll kill you anytime. Seeing them scampering off, The old man on the mountain let out a burst of arrogant laughter. His excitement could not be contained after he leveled up in his cultivation. They actually drove us out. Having been chased out from their own land, the bunch of martial artists in the underworld were extremely embarrassed. Let's go over there. Suddenly, hundreds of members from the first-class force in the underworld stopped. They exchanged a look before they headed to one of the mountains. Song Qingtian, what are you guys doing? Song family, have you all become the lackeys of the overseas factions? Just then, the 100 people heard raging voices yelling at them. We just want the Song family to grow stronger. What's wrong with that? If we can cultivate under the spiritual energy for a while, it's possible for all of us to become inborn experts. An old man turned his head and spoke with a stern look. So, this is the reason for being a lackey. An inborn expert returned a dreadful look. The entire underworld has fallen into such a state. What more do you want? The old man scoffed at the remaining crowd and walked off. Becoming a lackey of Asia's factions would earn the right to cultivate at the foot of the mountains. That was the condition of the overseas factions. China had too many relics, and the immortals would not dare to set foot here because of the guardian divine beasts. However, the international factions were setting the Chinese up. They intended to recruit some Chinese martial artists as their subordinates to gain better control of the underworld. It seemed like the strategy was working. Chapter 657, Get Out of the Territory of China, 3. Chapter 657, Get Out of the Territory of China, 3. At the foot of Mt. Taibai, the group of martial artists of the underworld stared bitterly at the Song family. All of them felt exceptionally embarrassed. The Song family of China wishes to join the Nether Flame. We hope that the various experts from the Nether Flame will accept us. The family head of the Song family, Song Qingtian, shouted towards the elite force in Asia, Nether Flame, who had occupied a mountain. Song family of China? What's the strength level of your family like? There was a total of 13 mountains that were shrouded within the waterfall-like spiritual energy around Mt. Taibai. 5 forces occupied these mountains, among which Creepy Snake and Gautama were the strongest 2 forces, and they occupied a total of 6 mountains. Nether Flame occupied 2 mountains and had a budding realm expert stationed in this place. An old man with a rather dark skin tone stood at the mountain peak, looked down on the Song family and spoke with contempt. Our Song family is a first-class force in the underworld with 3 inborn experts. Song Qingtian lowered his head and said respectfully, 3 inborn experts? You guys are really trashy. However, your entire underworld is trashy. I guess the Song family isn't that bad in comparison. Come over. The old man felt a little contempt as he spoke to Song Qingtian. Yes, Your Excellency. Our Song family will see Nether Flame denomination as our leader from here onwards. Agitation flashed across the eyes of Song Qingtian as he answered in a hurry. Great, great. The old man revealed a satisfied look. The group of people from the Song family approached the old man with ecstasy and lowered their stance once again. In the future, you guys can't go against any of the orders from our Nether Flame. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless. If there are any secret lands or treasures in China, you have to report it to us immediately. Yes. Our Song family wouldn't dare to defy Your Excellency. We will take instructions from the Nether Flame denomination from today onwards. The family head of the Song family answered immediately. Come over. Yes. The group of people from Song family was exhilarated and immediately started cultivating at the foot of the mountain. Under the cleansing of the spiritual energy, all the people in the family would be able to reach the inborn realm within a month. So what if they had to become the subordinates of the Nether Flame? When the various forces of the underworld saw the Song family sit below the spiritual energy waterfall, their expressions changed and they started hesitating. Our Qingfeng sect is willing to join the Gautama denomination. We hope that the Gautama denomination will accept us. At this moment, the sect leader of Qingfeng exchanged glances with the members of the higher management of the sect before walking ahead emotionlessly. They shouted respectfully at the international force that had occupied 3 mountains. Come over. You guys will see our Gautama denominations as your ruler from today onwards. In the near future, all of you will be the subordinates of our Gautama denominations and shall not betray us as long as you live. An old man with an angry look turned towards where the Qingfeng sect was and instructed solemnly. Yes. The group of people from Qingfeng sect hurried over immediately. Our Xian sect is willing to join the creepy snake group. Our Ivory Lotus sect is willing to join Graceful Massacre denomination. With someone taking the lead, several forces shouted respectfully towards various overseas forces, surrendering and becoming their subordinates. As for those overseas forces, they were happy to witness this development. There were countless treasures and secret lands within China. With eyes within China, they would only be advantages to their denominations without any disadvantages. Moreover, they wouldn't have to give up anything to recruit them for their use. Therefore, they were more than willing to accept these forces. Within a short period of a few minutes, half of all the forces in the underworld had chosen to join the 5 forces from overseas. This made all the other forces of the underworld feel extremely embarrassed and bitter. Haze. As a sacred clan of China, how could I possibly contemplate joining overseas forces? Tiske. Witnessing the developments, Sui Huang stormed off furiously. Xiao Quanshan also shook his head as he led his fellow clan member away helplessly. We are devils at our cores and would never be willing to become slaves of others. An old man from Reed Spirits turned around emotionlessly. Our diabolism will only accept others who listen to us. There's no way we would take instructions from others. After the experts from Sacred Clan and sects had left, the group from Thistles and Thorns sect also left. The remaining martial artists of the underworld hesitated for some time and eventually heaved a long sigh. We can't cultivate here and yet they are allowed to. In no time, the entire underworld will be under the control of overseas forces. An old man shook his head with melancholy as he headed for the exit. Some people were willing to become traders, but there were also some who weren't willing. As those prideful experts left, the remaining cultivators were in a dilemma. Cultivating under the spiritual energy waterfall would not just greatly enhance their cultivation realm. The greater effects would be cleansing their physical bodies. Their future cultivation would be smoother and their foundation would be more solid. Although those forces and martial artists of the underworld had become the dogs of the overseas forces, the rewards they would be reaping would be even more terrifying. In a month at the most, those forces who had chosen to become traders for the overseas forces would leave those who had chosen to leave today far behind. Although there weren't any sacred clans or sects who joined the overseas forces, it wouldn't take long for those who had to overtake the sacred clans and sects. Tragic. The tragedy of the underworld in China. Everyone, can our Black Wind denomination get a mountain? At this moment, several hundred people flew over at neck-breaking speed. 2 terrifying experts stood in the air and their domineering voices reverberated across the sky. Another powerful foreign force had arrived. Is this MT Taibai? At this moment, at the entrance to the tourist attraction MT Taibai, Xiao Yu looked inquisitively at the snow-white curtain that extended into the sky. The 1,000-meter-long white curtain that started from the sky was exceptionally majestic and beautiful. Yeah. Wang Xian nodded his head. A red and blue light flashed across his eyes as he stared at the sky. He could vaguely see another world. A large cauldron that seemed to have existed since ancient times hovered in the air and seemed to be suppressing an entire world. Let me ask the Thistles and Thorns sect. Xiao Yu and Elder Fong were about to make a call to the sect leader of the Thistles and Thorns sect. However, before they had even taken out their phones, they saw dejected martial artists of the underworld walking out. That's Sui Huang and the Xiao clan. Lan Qingyue looked at the crowd and remarked doubtfully. Wang Xian looked across the group of martial artists of the underworld. Leading them were the Sui clan, Xiao clan and Reed Spirits. Over 1,000 people followed behind them and each had a gloomy face. Sui Huang, old Xiao. Wang Xian walked ahead with a smile after seeing them. Wang Xian's voice took Sui Huang and old Xiao by surprise. The remaining martial artists also lifted their heads with shock. When they saw Wang Xian, they were stunned and speechless. Master. Xiao Rang greeted with ecstasy when he saw Wang Xian. What's the matter? Wang Xian nodded his head and walked over with a gentle smile. SSS. Seeing Wang Xian approaching them, some martial artists took several steps back instinctively. Even the Dan Realm experts from the Reed Spirits also took a step back in fear. The one before them was the terrifying existence that had annihilated half the underworld. Chapter 658, If you aren't leaving, I'll bury you here. 1. Chapter 658, If you aren't leaving, I'll bury you here. 1. Wang Xian. Sui Huang and old Xiao were ebullient to see Wang Xian as they hurriedly headed in his direction. Xiao Yu Elder Fong. Sect leader Tang and vice sect leader Lei from Thistles and Thorns sect walked towards Xiao Yu and Elder Fong with broad smiles. The arrival of Wang Xian and the gang immediately became a supporting pillar for them. 5,000 martial artists behind them remained silent, watching them. What's the matter? The spiritual energy is like a waterfall over here. Cultivating under it is a great chance for any martial artist. Just a month of cultivation and the underworld will regain its peak period. Wang Xian chuckled as he spoke, looking into their eyes. Wang Xian, we were chased out of the mountains. Those strong overseas forces won't allow us to practice around this area unless we become their lackeys or subordinates. Sui Huang shook his head bitterly, revealing a dreadful look. Those that are behind us did not agree to join those overseas groups. Now, we only have these martial artists from the underworld left. The rest have become the lackeys of the overseas forces. Xiao Quanshan darkened his expression. The underworld was bound together for good. Now that the underworld had come to such a state, none of their facial expressions looked good. Oh, they are in our territory, and they are asking the martial artists of the underworld to get lost? There was a flash of cold radiance in Wang Xian's eyes. As he spoke, he headed inside. Ask them to get out of China's territory. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan were stunned as they quickly continued. Wang Xian, those overseas forces are very compelling. Wang Xian gestured a dismissive sign. We shall see. Hayak hayak. A clap of grisly laughter came from behind. Sui Huang, Xiao Quanshan, and the rest were shocked as they looked behind Wang Xian immediately. More than 30 people led by a middle-aged man, Mo Qinglong, whom they were familiar with, were walking behind Wang Xian. But they had not seen the rest. There were 8 elders whose heights were less than 1 meter, holding daggers in their hands. The one who chuckled was an old man, exhibiting a sinister smile on his face. Everyone felt their hearts skip a beat. Apart from the 8 elders, there were other middle-aged men and elders with heavily tattooed faces. The killing and murderous aura being exuded were rather apparent. None of these middle-aged men and elders looked normal. Their demeanor made everyone uncomfortable. Those martial artists that were rather weak were even more aghast. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan exchanged a look as they followed behind Wang Xian. Dragon King. Upon seeing Wang Xian walking over, the 3 Dan realm experts from Reed Spirits quickly gave way to him while humbling themselves with a bow. Follow me. We cannot let some outsiders flaunt their prowess before us in our territory. Wang Xian nodded gently and spoke softly. Yes. The 3 Dan realm experts of Reed Spirits slightly paused for a moment before they nodded their heads with radiance flashing in their eyes. Over 5,000 martial artists around him were taken aback. They took the initiative to give way to him and followed him. All of them were wondering about the group of peculiar experts following behind Dragon King. I wonder which world is at MT Tai Bai. Wang Xian looked toward MT Tai Bai in the distance as he walked towards it. He whispered something that none of them could understand. Wang Xian, there are 6 overseas forces including the one that just arrived at MT Tai Bai. Among which there are over 10 budding realm experts and close to 40 Dan realm experts. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan dropped reminders to Wang Xian by the side. Wang Xian nodded as he craned his head slightly, looking at the mountains that were being cleansed by the spiritual energy. On the peaks of the mountains sat various martial artists. Some of them were exuding imposing aura from within. Bang bang bang. Wang Xian led the group of martial artists slowly to the middle of the mountain range. The trash from the underworld is here to submit to us? Become our subordinate and you'll have a chance to cultivate. Haha, you guys had better submit to us now. Seeing over 5,000 martial artists return again, the elder who had struck just now shouted at them with arrogance from one of the mountains. His face was filled with arrogance since he had just made a breakthrough in his cultivation level. What he said darkened all the expressions of the martial artists. Hee. Hearing his voice, a tinge of coldness welled up in his eyes as he swept his gaze across the peaks. Do you know where we are? Do you know where we are? A thunderous voice exploded within a radius of 10 kilometers, instantly alerting all the martial artists who were cultivating. Who is here for his doom? A grumpy old man stood up straight away as he hovered in the air. Those who interrupt our cultivation shall die. A middle-aged man swung his arm, and a long blade emerged in his hand. On the highest peak, the experts from Creepy Snake Group narrowed their eyes. At the same time, their samurai swords were giving off a cold radiance. Get out of China. Wang Xian looked at the experts hovering in the air without any expression. His voice traveled over a distance of 10 kilometers once again. Upon hearing the thunderous voice, all the martial artists behind him were shaken as they looked at Wang Xian with reverence. Haha, get out of China? Can you guys chase us out? What a surprise to see a budding realm expert in such a trashy place. An old man chuckled hysterically at Wang Xian from a peak. That is, the Dragon King. It's the Dragon King. He's here. His arrival is unexpected. Dragon King is here. At this moment, those martial artists of the underworld who had given themselves up to the overseas forces were shocked when they saw Wang Xian. They drew in a cold breath and spoke in horror with twisted expressions. Her? Upon hearing what they said, those overseas forces were puzzled. Who is the Dragon King? Asked the experts from the forces in low voices. He's the most terrifying existence in the underworld. We used to have a couple of budding realm experts too, but they were all killed by the Dragon King. Also, the underworld is not as weak as what you are seeing now. Just a month ago, the dragon sect established by the Dragon King annihilated half the clans and sects in the underworld, said these martial artists with trepidation. Those 2 days marked the darkest days in the underworld a month ago. All of them were afraid of the dragon sect experts showing up on their doorsteps. Dragon King? All the experts of the overseas forces spun around and stared daggers at Wang Xian. So I see. The most powerful force in China, Dragon King. But so what? You want us to leave here? Fat chance. Today, I'm announcing that this will be the territory of the Creepy Snake Group. Any martial artist from the underworld who isn't willing to surrender will die if you take a step in. Chapter 659, If you aren't leaving, I'll bury you here too. Chapter 659, If you aren't leaving, I'll bury you here too. Today, I'm announcing that this will be the territory of the Creepy Snake Group. Any martial artist from the underworld who isn't willing to surrender will die if you take a step in. Above the main peak where the spiritual energy waterfall originated, 5 old men stood at the tallest point while staring down at Wang Xian. Their cold voices reverberated across the entire area. Dragon King from the Dragon Sect. So what if he had annihilated half the underworld? Known throughout the underworld. So what? In this small underworld, there was indeed nothing that their Creepy Snake Group had to fear. What was there to fear about the ruler of the underworld that was as big as a small pond? So there are still budding realm experts in this underworld. This is really unexpected. Show us your strength. If you have the strength, you can get a mountain. An old man with a metal skull truncheon from Gautama denomination shouted in a low voice, "Keep your arrogance in check. Otherwise your outcome will be catastrophic. Kit, show us your strength. If you are weak, just get lost. There's no such thing as territory of the underworld. If my fist were larger, this would be our territory." Ah. An old man kept his hands behind his back while standing on a mountain peak and shouting arrogantly. When facing the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect, not a single overseas force was afraid or willing to back off. Although the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect are exceptionally terrifying, it would just be their wishful thinking to demand all other forces to get lost. No matter how strong the Dragon Sect might be, they would at most be at a level similar to the Creepy Snake Group. It might be possible to occupy 1 or 2 mountains. The Dragon King still doesn't have the strength to demand all of them to get lost from this place. That's right. There's nothing wrong with our decision. Even if the Dragon King can occupy 1 or 2 mountains, only those from the Sui clan, Xiao clan, and Thistles and Thorns sect would be allowed to cultivate on these mountains. There's no way we will get a chance. On various mountains, those martial artists that had joined the overseas forces looked down and commented gloomily. They had no regrets over their decisions at all. Brother Wang Xian, they are too strong. Why don't we occupy 1 or 2 mountains first? Looking at the terrifying old men on various mountains, they suggested solemnly. Wang Xian shook his head, looked around him and said, "Since you guys aren't leaving, this will be your burial site. This is a rather good resting place after all." Wang Xian's response stunned everyone around him. Creepy Snake Group. Your Creepy Snake Excellency almost killed me in the past. I'm going to collect some interest today. Killing is the most enjoyable thing in this world. At this moment, Dragon Spirit, Dragon Kid and the other Dragonians that had been following Wang Xian finally stepped out. Eerie voices came from them before they charged towards the 13 mountains. Mo Qinglong was equally focused as he charged towards the mountain directly ahead of him. Rumble. In an instant, 9 budding realm experts released their auras explosively from their bodies. The terrifying might instantly shook the spiritual energy waterfall. Hee. Time to kill. The Dragonians Wang Xian had brought along this time were from the wandering groups of the disordered region. Every member of these wandering groups had a lingering pungent blood scent on them. Brutality and massacres. Despite becoming Dragonians, their cores remained the same. Therefore Wang Xian had brought Mo Qinglong along. With his orders and Mo Qinglong to restrict them, these people wouldn't commit acts that were over the top. What? The 30-odd experts from the 6 forces that occupied the mountains were shocked to see these experts charging towards them with frightening auras. It's you? Old spirits? Why are you here? Aren't you supposed to be in the disordered region? Since when did you become the dog of someone else? The 5 old men from Creepy Snake Group growled as they saw the old dwarf approaching. Their expressions had also turned bitter and gloomy. I, your father, will bury you here today. Dragon Spirit gave a creepy smile and the dagger in his hand glowed with a faint green light. A black light shimmered in his eyes. You must be courting your own death to dare to attack all of us at once. Kill them. These arrogant bastards are courting their own deaths. The experts from these 6 forces were furious to see Wang Xian instructing his men to attack directly. None of them had any regard for the underworld of China. Yet, they were belittled by Wang Xian, who ordered his men to attack them recklessly. Moreover, what surprised them was that there were 9 budding realm experts among the experts who charged towards them. The experts from these 6 forces pulled a long face and met the attacks with raging killing intent. The battle exploded without any prior signs. Gulp. The Dragon King is still as domineering as before, attacking 6 overseas forces at once. Is this the entirety of Dragon Sect's strength? They are too strong. They actually have 9 budding realm experts. It's not surprising that the Dragon Sect would be able to annihilate Nie Wushuang, Emperor Qi, and the 4 old men previously. The crowd of martial artists from the underworld couldn't help but gasp as they felt their hearts palpitating violently while watching. This 9 budding realm experts. Is this the strength of the Dragon Sect? So strong. At this moment, those martial artists that had turned themselves to the overseas forces were completely shaken to their cores. They exchanged glances and could see a bad premonition from the looks in one another's eyes. 9 budding realm experts and 30-odd Dan realm experts from the Dragon Sect against the 15 budding realm experts and 40 to 50 Dan realm experts from the 6 forces. There was a huge difference in terms of the numbers of experts between both parties. The Dragon Sect would definitely not be a match for the 6 overseas forces. However, the Dragon King had not made a move. Furthermore, the Dragon King had shown the same dominance as before. Based on their prior experiences, they weren't certain who would emerge victorious in the end. How dare you even think of taunting us with just 9 budding realm experts? None of you shall even dream of escaping today. The old man from Creepy Snake Group was brimming with dense killing intent. His samurai sword was wrapped in black devilish aura and opened up a devilish mark that extended over 1,000 meters. Rumble. An explosion reverberated across the sky and the spiritual energy waterfall as spiritual energy scattered down like rain. Hehe. Dragon Spirit, Dragon Kid, and other budding realm experts were fearless despite the other party having an overwhelming advantage in numbers. All of them were experts that had survived a bloodbath. Now that they possessed the bloodline of the divine dragon, their strength was enhanced once again. All of them were holding level 12 spiritual equipment. These were specially crafted by Wang Xian. With the materials on hand, Wang Xian was able to refine 20 pieces of level 12 spiritual equipment. As for level 11 spiritual equipment, he had sufficient materials for over 100 pieces. Die. Creepy, ruthless and violent attacks were launched by the Dragonians. Their strength was a lot higher than Mo Qinglong, who had just reached the budding realm. Shit. Why would your attack be? An old man who stood opposite the Dragon Kid was astounded. He stared at his weapons that were now covered in cracks and fear started welling up inside him. Grr. Dragon Kid, who had a hideous expression, shouted loudly. The next instant, a huge devil dragon illusion appeared behind him and the hideous face on it trembled. The killings start now. Wang Xian looked at the battle in the sky and revealed a satisfied smile. He wouldn't have to say much to these overseas forces. All he had to do was kill them all. Chapter 660, If You Aren't Leaving, I'll Bury You Here, 3. Chapter 660, If you aren't leaving, I'll bury you here. 3. Wang Xian was neither interested in replying nor listening to their rattles. Since they were not leaving, then they could stay here for good. With level 9 Dragonians, their strength, coupled with the spiritual equipment, was just barely enough to fight against 15 enemies of equivalent levels. However, with him around, he could instantly end all the fights. Wang Xian decided to support them by making a strike. He wanted to observe the strength of the Dragonians and give them some training. When 5 level 12 spiritual swords appeared in his hand, he hurled them into the air at a daunting speed. However, the 5 spiritual swords stayed put and suspended themselves quietly in the air as they exuded domineering energy, striking fear into everyone. Is the Dragon King going to strike? Gosh, 9 budding realm experts can actually go against 15 budding realm experts. 5 spiritual swords from the Dragon King are also ready to strike. This group of overseas forces is doomed. The Dragon King is still, indeed, the Dragon King. Those martial artists of the underworld behind Wang Xian were elated to see this. At first, they thought the Dragon King could at most occupy 1 or 2 mountains. Little did they expect Dragon Sect's strength to have grown to such a domineering level. The Dragon King was going to chase away all the overseas forces. Even better, kill them all. Since the Dragon King did not ask us to leave, does that mean that he is allowing us to practice under that spiritual energy waterfall? One of the inborn experts asked with a slight thrill. Several people beside him nodded slowly. I wonder what conditions the Dragon King has. So what? It's fine to even become a subsidiary sect of Dragon Sect since the entire underworld belongs to him now. That's right. Given their current strength, unifying the entire underworld is a piece of cake. Some martial artists commented softly. Several inborn experts even nodded their heads in agreement. Even if Wang Xian requested all the martial artists in the underworld to join Dragon Sect, none of them would have any objections. The 3 Dan realm experts of Reed Spirits nodded in silence after exchanging looks. Whoosh! At this time, 5 spiritual swords in the air were stabbing one of the Nether Flame budding realm experts. Boom! The budding realm expert from Nether Flame was horrified. Dragon King, are you bent on making enemies with the Nether Flame? When Nether Flame God arrives here, you'll die a horrible death. Hehe, this is your burial place. If you want to leave, you can only do so by killing the Dragon Sect's men. Otherwise, stay in China. Wang Xian cast an indifferent gaze at the overseas forces with a taunting look on his face. Brother, use your spiritual swords to stab that old man in mustard clothing. Just now, he killed one of the Thistles and Thorns sect's disciples, said Xiao Yu, tugging on Wang Xian's arm. Okay. Wang Xian nodded with a smile. He cast his gaze at the old man in mustard clothing who was besieging a Dragonian with another budding realm expert. That Dragonian kept staggering back as he was completely under suppression. Wang Xian waved his arm and 5 spiritual swords darted out instantly. Damn it! The elder who was attacking the Dragonian was horrified as he staggered back hastily. He swung his palm, and a mustard palm of 12 meters slammed onto the 5 spiritual swords. Swish! However, the 5 spiritual swords pierced through the palm right away. Under the horrifying gaze of that old man, the swords penetrated his limbs, crushing his entire body with domineering energy. A shriek was heard as fear flashed in the eyes of that old man, looking at the 5 scary spiritual swords in horror. So strong. Attack that fellow and stop him from controlling the spiritual swords, one of the budding realm experts from Creepy Snake Group exclaimed while a black figure charged at Wang Xian immediately. Whoosh! However, the 5 spiritual swords split into millions of swords instantly, looming over the incoming figure. Baka! That black figure grimaced and let out a raging roar. When millions of swords penetrated him, the black figure let out a terrifying cry. His 4 limbs were pierced through by the spiritual swords and exploded. This is toying around? Playing with them? The group of martial artists of the underworld widened their eyes as they saw the Dragon King grinning from ear to ear. They quivered as stunning looks welled up in their eyes. This is the consequence for playing punk in China? A martial artist of the underworld asked blankly. The 4 budding realm experts from Gautama denomination could not help but narrow their eyes upon seeing the annihilation of 1 budding realm expert. Not that Wang Xian could not kill that expert, but he crippled him just like he was a toy. This struck fear into them. 4 experts exchanged glances with dreadful expressions. The Gautama denomination does not want to fight with the Dragon King. We'll leave China now. One of the experts from Gautama denomination darkened his expression and bellowed in a low voice. Too late. The Chinese are hospitable people. You can be buried here. Wang Xian chuckled as his eyes became filled with disdain. Thinking of leaving? How could it be that easy? How dare you say we're the sick man of East Asia? Trashy underworld? Xiao Yu snorted coldly as she stared with a beaming face. Upon hearing what they said, the experts from the overseas forces felt their hearts sink. In this instance, the spiritual sword in Wang Xian's hand whipped up another attack. The water swords that were shrouding 5,000 meters of the area penetrated the 4 budding realm experts, and they were crippled right away. Okay, now we're one-on-one. This is much fairer. Those who defeated my subordinates can leave. Other than that, don't ever think of escaping. Wang Xian's indifferent voice reverberated across more than 10 kilometers, causing embarrassment for all the supreme-class experts from the overseas forces. From the combat just now, they were shocked to realize that this expert who exuded murderous aura was far stronger and more fearsome than they had thought. They would never be a match for him one-on-one. At the same time, they could not escape. In other words, they would be killed by their opponent. He's toying with us. Such a thought suddenly popped into their heads. They had arrived here with pride and self-esteem, and they stuck their heads in the clouds, thinking that they were here to teach the uncivilized people some lessons. Now they had fallen down from their clouds. Embarrassment, rage, fear, and a tinge of despair were all they felt. They are the overseas forces that we surrendered ourselves to. Back at the bottom of the mountain, those martial artists of the underworld who had surrendered themselves were completely frozen. Their masters were being toyed with by the most powerful expert from their underworld. Dragon King of Dragon Sect. They trembled, unsure of whether it was out of fear or hatred. All the 6 ultimate overseas forces and over 10 budding realm experts had met their doom on this land that, in their opinions, bred the sick men of East Asia. They had met their doom in the underworld, which they regarded as a piece of trash. Keep one alive from each of the forces. Let them go back and spread the word. They need to consider the consequences before they enter China in the future. Chapter 661 Dragon Vein. Chapter 661 Dragon Vein. Arg. Blood-curdling screams resounded in the skies constantly. Over 1,000 people from the 6 forces had come to this place. Among the 1,000 people, those below Dan Realm would be equivalent to cannon fodder in a battle of this level. They couldn't escape at all. Budding realm experts were dying under the attacks from the Dragonians. In the sky, the battle between a dozen-odd budding realm experts gave the martial artists of the underworld the feeling that the apocalypse was happening right before their eyes. A casual strike would bring with it terrifying auras that extended over several hundred to several thousand meters. Each attack seemed capable of splitting the space and sky. As compared to the 4-way battles between the Dragon King, Emperor Qi, middle-aged swordsman, and Ye Wushuang, the battle that was happening before their eyes at this moment made them feel even more fear. The martial artists from the 6 overseas forces were horrified. For the very first time, they regretted their decision to step into the territory of China. When the 9 cauldron worlds descend into the real world, you guys will then know what the real underworld is. Wang Xian recalled the group of people he had encountered from the Xia cauldron world while looking at the overseas forces being annihilated rapidly. They had said that all of Asia would be ruled by the underworld of China. Various forces in Asia would have to pay pilgrimage to them. If the 9 cauldron worlds were to truly descend into the real world and ally together, they could easily crush all other forces in Asia. Bam. As expert after expert from the overseas forces died, those forces and martial artists from the underworld that had sought refuge with the overseas forces were incomparably bitter and embarrassed. They had complicated feelings and felt a little fear deep down in them. Would the Dragon King kill them? There was a high possibility that he might. Let's go up the mountain. Wang Xian said to Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue, and the girls who were beside them before walking towards the mountain shrouded under the spiritual energy waterfall. Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan followed closely behind him. The remaining martial artists of the underworld hesitated for a moment before following and walking towards the mountain under the spiritual energy waterfall. What a dense concentration of spiritual energy. Cultivating here would shorten the time required by over 10 times. When they reached the peak of a mountain, Lan Qingyue and the girls exclaimed in surprise. Even for Dan Realm or budding realm experts, Cultivating under the spiritual energy waterfall would be several tens to several hundreds times more effective. For martial artists at the inborn realm and lower, the effects would be even more insane. Cultivating here will be just like immersing yourself in spiritual liquid. Wang Xian was slightly surprised too when he sensed the spiritual energy that was falling on him. Even if he were to cultivate here for a day, he would be able to gain several tens of thousands of dragon energy. Dragon King, we have left 6 alive and kept the rest here. At this moment, Mo Qinglong walked over and reported. Wang Xian nodded his head and looked towards the group of martial artists that had sought refuge with the overseas forces. Sensing Wang Xian's gaze, all the martial artists were shivering anxiously. Ask them to get out of this place. As for the rest, find a place and cultivate. Wang Xian announced plainly. Yes. Mo Qinglong nodded his head and his terrifying aura swept towards those martial artists that had joined the overseas forces. Those martial artists paled and were exceptionally bitter when they heard Wang Xian. Their expressions changed drastically and intense hatred welled up in their hearts. All of them left while feeling despair. They would have never expected that the seemingly invincible overseas forces they had joined would be toyed with and killed by the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect. Those seemingly invincible experts were all killed. Dragon King. Some martial artists gritted their teeth. Their eyes were filled with horror and a tinge of anger. However, they could only hide this little tinge of fury away as they dared not to offend the Dragon King. The current Dragon King was an immortal-like existence in the underworld. Thank you, Dragon King. As for the martial artists that were following behind Wang Xian, they bowed down instantly to express their gratitude. Every single one of them was shaking with excitement. They had initially thought they had lost even the slightest hope. To their astonishment, the Dragon King had returned to kill all the overseas forces and allowed them to cultivate in this place. As for those martial artists that had joined the overseas forces previously, they were chased out of this place directly. In the future, with the Dragon King stationed at the place where they were cultivating, they could cultivate in peace. Wang Xian waved his arm, lifted his head and stared at the sky. A huge cauldron appeared in his sight. The spiritual energy of this place will likely disappear within a month or two. After its disappearance, terrifying forces will descend into this world. At that time, watch your own actions. Wang Xian reminded the crowd of martial artists from the underworld. The descent of the 9 cauldron worlds would be a huge blow to the martial artists of the real world. If it wasn't for the spiritual energy waterfall, the martial artists of the underworld would be in a terrible state. The appearance of the spiritual energy waterfall would give them some strength to hold their ground. The surrounding people looked at Wang Xian with confused looks. However, none of them raised any questions. Let's cultivate here too. Wang Xian said to Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue and the girls. The group of girls nodded their heads. They wouldn't want to let this great chance encounter slip either. The 6 of them flew to the peak of the main mountain. Xiao Yu and the other 4 girls sat on it and started absorbing the endless spiritual energy. Around them, all the martial artists weren't willing to let a single second go to waste as they sat down right away and started cultivating. Wang Xian stood below the spiritual energy waterfall while staring at his body, which was immersed in the white spiritual energy. He looked down the mountain. The spiritual energy is so dense that it doesn't dissipate as it enters the mountain vein. This is truly strange. A red and blue light flashed across and Wang Xian looked below him. No spiritual or mine is formed after the spiritual energy enters the mountain vein. There isn't any spiritual stone either. Instead, the spiritual energy seems to be modifying the mountain vein. How queer. It feels a little like a spirit array. Wang Xian's eyes lit up. As the spiritual energy entered the mountain vein, it seemed to have undergone a unique change. It felt a little like dragon energy. Wang Xian started absorbing the spiritual energy and converting it into dragon energy. The spiritual energy that entered the mountain vein was converted into another form of energy. Vaguely, Wang Xian felt that it was similar to his dragon energy. With a change in thought, a stream of dragon energy was injected into the mountain. This is? Wang Xian was stunned and astonished. The spiritual energy seems to be transforming into dragon energy. It's really dragon energy. Wang Xian's eyes beamed with excitement. Dragon energy is a middle to high tier energy in the universe. Its greatest effect would be modification. If a place has dragon energy, it would be modified to become a place where talents and great wealth would emerge. Generally, the place would change positively. This spiritual energy that entered the mountains is being converted into dragon energy automatically. Spiritual energy is converted into dragon energy and the dragon energy is completely locked within the mountain vein. It seems like something is forming. If my guess is correct, a dragon vein will be formed as dragon energy enters the mountain vein. Legend has it that those who occupy the dragon vein will claim the throne to the entire world. This is because the dragon vein has dragon energy deep within it. The dragon energy will enlighten the people and nourish the land. It's easier for talents and experts to be raised in this place. That's the reasoning behind those who occupy the dragon vein often claiming the throne to the entire world. Wang Xian's eyes flickered as he stared below him with fervor. Dragon vein. Earth is the flesh of the dragon, stones are the bones of the dragon, plants are the hairs of the dragon and water is the blood of the dragon. As for the dragon vein, the only thing that would be lacking is a soul. Chapter 662, Steal the Dragon Vein. Chapter 662, Steal the Dragon Vein. The dragon vein ran through all the dynasties of China. All the emperors in the olden days would choose their capitals and build their palaces on the dragon vein. Wang Xian did not understand the relationship between the 9 cauldrons and the dragon vein. But he was sure that the spiritual energy from the 9 cauldrons had flowed into the mountain range, coagulating into a dragon vein. If this is a well-formed dragon vein, the dragon energy from within can keep a dragon sealed. But if the dragon energy is exhausted, the dragon vein will be lost forever. But now that the dragon vein is undergoing coagulation, can I? Wang Xian had a bold idea. Steal the dragon vein. The dragon vein was dead. But if he could bring it to life, that would mean he could use it for himself. To bring the dragon vein to life might be difficult for others, but it was not as difficult as imagined for Wang Xian. As he moved his finger, a drop of blood slowly descended to the peak. Under Wang Xian's control, it flowed toward the interior of the mountain range after the blood dropped onto the peak. Once the blood landed on the dragon vein, invisible ripples seemed to rise out from it. A mighty divine dragon can be resurrected by a drop of blood because the blood contains domineering energy, dragon energy. With the dragon energy and the soul in the blood, the divine dragon could be resurrected. With my blood and the dragon energy from the dragon vein, a divine dragon will be born. Even if a divine dragon cannot be born, the dragon vein will come to life and be under my control. Wang Xian was looking thrilled in his eyes. The incessant spiritual energy condensed into dragon energy, and in turn formed the dragon vein, which contained incomparable mightiness. Be it a divine dragon being born or a dragon vein that came to life, this was a huge opportunity for Wang Xian once the dragon vein was completed. When the dragon vein takes shape, the dragon will roar through the sky from here. Wang Xian could not help but let out a burst of laughter while all the martial artists of the underworld looked over with astonishment. He looked around, sat cross-legged on the mountain, and began his cultivation. Such cultivation took half a month. Within this half a month, Wang Xian accumulated 1,000,000 points of dragon energy. However, it was not a lot to him. But to the rest of the martial artists and the 5 ladies, including Xiao Yu, they benefited a lot from it. Xiao Yu and Elder Fong were half-stepped to budding realms in the first place. Naturally, they advanced to the budding realm. On the other hand, Lan Qingyue, Ajaya, and Sun Lingxiu took one step further in the budding realm. The spiritual energy waterfall was a huge opportunity, but the effect was mild for Dan realm and budding realm experts. However, this was like a free lunch to those who were in born and below. Half a month ago, level 5 and 6 were the most common levels. There were even level 3 and level 4 martial artists. But now, it had become level 8 and level 9, and almost 400 had advanced to inborn level. The number of inborn experts was almost on par with the underworld before the massacre. Dragon King, something big happened in the underworld again. At this time, Mo Qinglong walked over and whispered in his ear. "What's the matter?" asked Wang Xian as he stood up slowly. Another spiritual energy waterfall emerged in the Guda mountain range. Mo Qinglong reported to Wang Xian. Another spiritual energy waterfall. Wang Xian was slightly stunned, but a tinge of pleasant surprise flashed in his eyes soon after. Where is the Guda mountain range? The Guda mountain range is located not far from the intersection of China and India's border. The spiritual energy waterfall appeared one day ago, and those martial artists who surrendered themselves to the overseas forces previously are rushing over there now. said Imo Qinglong to Wang Xian. Is that so? Wang Xian narrowed his eyes. It looks like the 9 cauldron worlds will be descending into the real world one by one from now on. Let's get there now. The appearance of the spiritual energy waterfall also represented the coagulation of another dragon vein. Wang Xian saw that as something more valuable. In the future, the dragon veins might become powers that surpass the immortal class. Yes, Dragon King. Imo Qinglong nodded. Xiao Yu, Qingyue, Ajaya, Lingxiu. Wang Xian called out to the girls beside him. Her? They opened their eyes and stared at him, puzzled. Another similar place has appeared in the underworld. I'm heading there now while you girls can practice here, said Wang Xian to them. Sure, Xiao Xian. The girls nodded. If the spiritual energy becomes exhausted over here, all of you must leave this place immediately. Remember, all of you must leave. Wang Xian reminded them. Oh, got it. Don't worry, Xiao Xian. The girls nodded. Continue with your cultivation. I'm off now. Wang Xian nodded his head and gestured to Imo Qinglong, Dragon Kid, Dragon Spirit, and the rest of the Dragonians. Let's go. Yes, Dragon King. A group of Dragonians followed behind him, flitting towards Guda Mountain Range at a rapid speed. Guda Mountain Range was a small mountain range without any fame. There were hundreds of mountains with the highest peak at about 1,000 meters with barren surroundings. Within the mountains, the wild pheasants and boars would let out cries of excitement from time to time, as though they had evolved into demons. The cries of wild boars and pheasants caused the surrounding peaks to be even more chaotic. At this time, blossoming white clouds descended from the sky. An immense amount of spiritual energy gushed down like a waterfall. Haha, spiritual energy from heaven. Spiritual energy from heaven. Heaven has blessed us. Yes, it's the spiritual energy similar to MT Taibai. Finally, we have a chance to become experts. At this moment, all the loud and thrilling exclamations had replaced all the howls and roars of the wild pheasants and boars. All the martial artists of the underworld raced toward the peaks that were shrouded by spiritual energy and exhilaration. None of them could hide the excitement on their faces. The number of martial artists had reached more than 2,000 people. Haha, Dragon King. Even though you didn't allow us to cultivate over there, we have our own place now. An elder involuntarily exclaimed with a malevolent look. Yes, what have we done wrong? We just want to be stronger. Dragon King, you're too overbearing. One day, fighting spirit and anger filled that young man's eyes. He opened his arms with elation and eagerness. Without such a huge opportunity, how could you, Dragon King, get this far? Now the chance belongs to us. One day, I'll surpass you and become the most powerful existence in the underworld. All the martial artists cried out in happiness. Ever since they'd been chased out by the Dragon King half a month ago, they were filled with anger and unwillingness. When they heard daily news that some martial artists had attained a breakthrough in their levels, their hearts wrenched. Why had they been banned from cultivating over there? Didn't they join the overseas forces just to become stronger? Chapter 663, We Are the Kings. Overseas Races Surrender, 1. Chapter 663, We Are the Kings. Overseas Races Surrender, 1. They hated the Dragon King for depriving them of the rights to become stronger. They were furious and wanted revenge. However, what they felt was just a sense of helplessness. The crowd of martial artists from the underworld at MT Taibai had left them far behind. In the future, they would be forgotten by the underworld and demoted to the lowest level of the underworld. However, just a day ago, they'd gotten the news of spiritual energy falling off the sky above Guda Mountain Range. This had ignited their hopes once again. Several martial artists of the underworld extended their arms out in excitement while enjoying the spiritual energy waterfall. There would be a day when they would become a strong existence in the underworld. That day would be here sooner than later. The underworld of China is truly a bountiful land. Spiritual energy descending from the sky? Moreover, it is so close to our Gautama denomination. Your Excellency, it is also a great encounter for us that the spiritual energy waterfall is so close to us. That's right. This is a great encounter for all cultivators from India. Half a month ago, no one would have expected a dragon to be hidden within the underworld of China. He killed all the experts from 6 elite forces in Asia. Our immortal realm Excellency didn't dare to step into the territory of China and we were forced to give up that wonderful chance encounter. Who would have expected the spiritual energy waterfall to appear here half a month later? This is destined to be ours. We will kill whoever dares to challenge us for this encounter. Suddenly, a peal of hysterical laughter that resembled thunder roaring reverberated. The martial artists from the underworld that were standing on the mountain peak stiffened immediately. Their excitement faded away as their expressions turned incomparably stiff. Fear gleamed in their eyes. No. They are Gautama from India and some other forces. Those martial artists from the underworld turned their heads around slowly. When they saw the approaching group of people, they felt extremely bitter. There seemed to be people on the mountain peak. At this moment, the fast-approaching group of forces from India saw the group of people on the mountain peak. Instantly, they upped their vigilance. If it was in the past, they would definitely not be so vigilant when they encountered forces from the underworld in China. However, the news that they received half a month ago spread fear throughout all the forces in Asia. The Dragon King of the Dragon Sect in China had led his group of experts from the Dragon Sect and killed 15 budding realm experts. It was especially so for the strength displayed by the Dragon King. Based on the illustration of the disciples that had escaped, the Dragon King manipulated 5 swords and was able to kill budding realm experts from several thousand meters away easily. Based on their conjecture, the Dragon King had probably reached the pinnacle of the budding realm or even the half-step to immortal realm. If their immortal realm experts weren't heading over, it would probably be difficult for them to suppress the Dragon King and the Dragon Sect. Due to the presence of the Dragon King from China, those 6 elite forces in Asia, which had suffered huge losses, didn't dare to act recklessly. When they saw there were people on the mountain peak, they were truly afraid that the Dragon King would be there. They're just a pile of trash. There's nothing for us to worry about. At this moment, the old man with a double-headed truncheon looked across the group of martial artists from the underworld. He gave a smile and spoke with a low voice. As long as the Dragon King from China isn't around, we can act as we wish. Upon hearing the old man, the surrounding forces from India cheered loudly. Upon hearing the voices that came from afar, the martial artists from the underworld paled instantly. They felt they had suffered grave grievances. They had turned to join the overseas forces, but these overseas forces were in turn annihilated by the Dragon King. The Dragon King had chased them away. Now that they found another great opportunity, other strong overseas forces came. The group of martial artists couldn't help but be furious and feel sorry for themselves. Their expressions were contorted. There are quite a few of them. The experts from the Gautama denomination stood in the air and stared fervently at the spiritual energy waterfall that fell from the sky, following which their gazes shifted to the martial artists below. Kill all of them to save us the trouble. An old man who was wearing a mask looked coldly at the martial artists below him and instructed them emotionlessly. All right, kill all of them. Around them, the crowd of cultivators from India revealed brutal and fearsome expressions as they drew their weapons. There were tridents, wooden rods, and truncheons. When compared with the weapons used in China, there were huge differences. Don't. Seeing that the other party wanted to kill them directly, the martial artists on the mountain were horrified. Please don't kill us. We surrender. We surrender. An inborn expert from the Song family shouted bitterly. After surrendering for the first time, they felt no emotional barriers against doing so again. That's right. We surrender. We are willing to listen to all your instructions. All the other martial artists of the underworld chimed in. The only thing they didn't do was to go on their knees. They are truly a pile of trash without any backbone. Seeing how they had reacted, the experts from the Gautama denominations were full of contempt. We don't need a group of weak dogs. An old man by the side looked down at the crowd of martial artists and mocked them coldly. Kill these useless creatures. A voice that was brimming with killing intent resounded again, making the martial artists on the mountain peak feel despair again. What? I'm not convinced. What? Why did things turn out this way? The inborn expert from the Song family growled loudly with a contorted face. Having encountered such events consecutively had distorted his mindset. Trash will always be just trash. Disdain filled the eyes of the experts from Gautama denomination and other forces from India. They waved their arms and sent attacks towards the crowd of martial artists from the underworld. Ka. However, at the moment they wanted to attack, the void space started cracking. In the sky, the entire space seemed to be just like a piece of a mirror, as terrifying green ripped it apart. A voice that could numb one's skull rang throughout the sky. The terrifying scene stunned the experts from the Gautama denominations and forces from India as they stared at the cracked space with astonishment. Arg! On the mountain peak, several dozens of martial artists cried out loud upon being hit with terrifying attacks from the experts of the Gautama denominations. The experts from the Gautama denominations didn't pay attention to them at all. Their eyes were fixed intensely on the sky. Is this the real world? A voice came from the cracks of the space, making everyone tense their bodies instantly. At this moment, an old man with long hair and a green outfit walked out of the cracks. The old man stood in the air and was observing his surroundings inquisitively. Soon after, several old men walked out from the cracks behind him. They were all wearing green outfits and the guys all had long hair. They had a similar style to those in the history of ancient China. Yes, Elder Hua. This is the real world. In the end, a voice reverberated from the cracks of the space and 5 young men with short hair emerged from the cracks. The cracks recovered slowly and peace returned to the crushed space. Approximately 50 to 60 people stood in the air. They looked around and were pleasantly surprised when they saw the spiritual energy waterfall below them. Their gazes swept across the crowd of martial artists from the underworld before landing on the experts from the Gautama denomination and other forces from India. People from other nations? What are they here for? Surrendering to us? An old man looked down from above. He was expressionless and it was as if he was simply stating a fact. Chapter 664, We Are the Kings. Overseas Races Surrender, 2. Chapter 664, We Are the Kings. Overseas Races Surrender, 2. People from other nations? What are they here for? Surrendering to us? The nonchalant voice was filled with gentleness. About 60 people stood in the air while the old man in the middle did not flare. He continued to overlook the group of cultivators from Gautama denomination and India without any expression. The experts within Gautama denomination and the Indian cultivators revealed slight embarrassment on their faces when they heard the old man's otherworldly words. All of them stared at the group of people who walked from a space crack in the sky with vigilance. None of them dared to speak. The martial artists of the underworld below fixed their eyes on the immortals that stalked out of the immortal realm in the air with astonishment. The old man who was known as Elder Hua did not mind their silence. Slowly, he looked down and spotted the group of martial artists of the underworld standing on one of the peaks. He swept his gaze at the dozen bodies who were attacked and asked softly, "This is the underworld of China? How weak they are." Elder Hua murmured softly. A few short-haired young and middle-aged men approached that old man from behind and bowed. With respect they answered, "Elder Hua, those are the martial artists of the underworld below. As for the rest, they should be the other forces from overseas." A middle-aged man with short hair looked around. Apparently, he had good knowledge about those martial artists of the underworld. Her? Over 2,000 martial artists of the underworld craned their necks and looked up with bewilderment, staring at the middle-aged man who spoke. Attendant Hua. Suddenly, the sect leader of Qingfeng's sect burst out a shocking cry. He was taken aback as he fixed his eyes on the middle-aged man with short hair. Upon hearing his voice, the middle-aged man with short hair cast his sight over and nodded plainly. After the 9 cauldron worlds went into seclusion, the entire underworld slipped into decline. All of you are worse than kids, getting bullied by extraterritorial races. A bunch of useless things. As Elder Hua slowly chided them, he was already striding toward the mountain below. A group of about 60 experts followed behind him to the mountain below. Elder Hua, the immortal sects have remained in seclusion while diabolism rose. The underworld is getting worse generation by generation. The middle-aged man with short hair spoke with a sigh. Boo. 60 of them stood at the peak summit while the rest of the martial artists of the underworld did not dare to take in deep breaths. All of them were standing there like cats on hot bricks. They may be useless but they are still Chinese martial artists. When did the Chinese get bullied by anyone? We are the kings while the extraterritorial races have to surrender to us. Elder Hua was expressionless when he cast his gaze at the experts from Gautama denomination and India. Pay us back 10 times for killing dozens of our men. Elder, leave this to us. The 3 middle-aged men behind him stared coldly at the few hundred people from Gautama denomination and India. How dare you kill the Chinese martial artists? Pay us back 10 times now. Before the three men could finish their words, greenish energy darted out without any warning. "Gentlemen, let's talk this out." Upon seeing the greenish energy charging toward them, the old man who was leading the Gautama denomination was aghast. He tapped his truncheon, and a dazzling golden shield manifested itself before them. "Kill before talk." There was a flash of contempt in their eyes when the three middle-aged men saw the defense put up by the budding realm experts from Gautama denomination. "Thistles and thorns burial," three of them called out. To everyone's surprise, the greenish energy landed on the tree branches on the mountain. Whoosh! For a moment, all the trees seemed to be transformed into some tree demons with branches extending themselves frantically. Even the roots were wriggling violently. A few hundred tree branches grew to 1,000 meters long, hurling themselves at the Gautama denomination disciples and the Indian cultivators. "What?" The old man who had a double-headed truncheon in his hand suddenly changed his expression. The elder beside him was horrified as well. The golden radiance vibrated and was penetrated by those three branches right away. Frightening shrieks suddenly rang out while a tree branch that was less than 100 meters long sprang out from the ground out of the blue. His body was trapped by it immediately as he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. "Watch out!" an Indian expert shouted in trepidation. However, all the trees in the surroundings were uplifted from the ground, sweeping in from the air and the land. All the experts from Gautama denomination and the Indian cultivators were aghast. Their screams lasted for only 10 seconds before they came to an abrupt end. Hundreds of corpses were lying everywhere on the ground. 140, nice. A middle-aged man swept his gaze across and commented plainly. This sentence struck chills into all the cultivators of Gautama denomination and India instantly. All they could do was stare at them with consternation. As soon as they sensed danger, they were ready to flee. Elder Hua nodded his head without any emotion. He looked up impassively at the cultivators from Gautama denomination and India and said, "Since the king has returned, the rest of you can surrender or die." Phew. All the experts from Gautama denomination and India were horrified by what Elder Hua had said. Everyone was infuriated. "Elder, the Gautama denomination is in the top 9 supreme class forces within Asia. We've got immortals controlling a region." The old man with a double-headed truncheon replied in a low voice with a sullen face. "Gautama denomination? I've never heard of it. I only heard of Shaohuang denomination, which was annihilated by us. It looks like none of you are going to surrender to us." Upon hearing them, the elder remained composed as he overlooked them. "What, you?" The old man with the double-headed truncheon widened his eyes with horror. The rest of the disciples of Gautama denomination and Indian cultivators were equally shocked. Shaohuang denomination was their ancient denomination in India. It used to be the largest denomination in their country. However, the entire denomination had been annihilated 300 years ago. Some of the disciples who managed to escape from it established the Gautama denomination that existed today. Immortal sect? All of you are from immortal sects? It was said that all the Chinese immortal sects entered another world, right? The old man with the double-headed truncheon asked this with eyes full of disbelief. His eyebrows were twitching without stopping. "Extraterritorial races, kneel before us and surrender to us." Without any further talking, an emerald truncheon suddenly emerged in Elder Hua's hand. The truncheon was 1 meter long and the tip was embedded with an emerald bead. You people." All the Gautama denomination and Indian people exhibited humiliating looks on their faces. "Asking us to surrender? Want us to get on our knees? How could this be possible? Why are domineering experts sprouting up in China out of the blue? Why are the legendary immortal sects descending into this world? Why do we keep running into them? If you do not surrender, death is the only way out." Seeing them in a long silence, the old man spoke in an overbearing voice. "Let us do it." 5 middle-aged and old men instantly struck from behind. All the trees within the thousands of meters around turned into tree demons, launching their attacks. The 2 elders lifted their fiery red truncheons up slowly over their heads. Wood fire burial. Chapter 665, Get on your knees and prepare to be killed. Chapter 665, Get on your knees and prepare to be killed. Wood fire burial. The group of 5 middle-aged and old men shouted. The next instant, the densely packed tree demons in the surroundings trapped and cornered 100 disciples from the Gautama denominations and over 200 cultivators from other forces in India. Just as the tree demons trapped the cultivators, huge fireballs were hurled onto the tree demons. Boom. In an instant, the densely packed tree demons that had covered over 3 to 4 kilometers were set ablaze at a rapid speed. Terrifying waves of fire swept across, killing over 100 weaker martial artists directly. How terrifying! How terrifying! The remaining martial artists from the underworld stared at the terrifying sea of flames. The fire burned the wood and wood spurred the growth of the fire. Wood fire burial. Arg. At this moment, blood-curdling screams sounded from the middle of the wood fire burial. Suddenly 2 figures shot towards the sky. They were surrounded by blinding golden rays and were escaping into the sky at an incredible speed. Will you be able to escape? Elder Hua stared at the 2 budding realm experts who had escaped as he placed the truncheon in his hands on the ground. Wong. What the surrounding crowd could see was bright green light being injected into the ground. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, 2 gruesome vines shot out from the ground and wrapped themselves around the 2 experts from Gautama denomination. The vines emitted blinding green light and pulled them towards the wood fire burial. Arg. No. Our denomination will take revenge for us. 2 spine-chilling screams reverberated across the sky. Soon there was no longer any signs of life. The crowd of martial artists from the underworld was completely dumbfounded. The shock they got today was in no way any lower than that of half a month ago. Half a month ago, the experts from the Dragon sect had dominated the crowd of elite forces from Asia. The Dragon King easily killed 5 budding realm experts with 5 flying swords. And today the group of 5 middle-aged and old men destroyed several hundreds of powerful opponents with 2 moves. One of the old men was even able to trap 2 budding realm experts with a single move. Since when was the underworld so horrifying? They felt as though they were no longer living in the underworld. Instead, they were living in a world that only existed in legends. We have 2 matters to handle now. Elder Hua shifted his vision from the wood fire burial. His expression was unmoved as he turned to face the group behind him. First, we have to get our hands on the information of the real world. Second, we have to take revenge for our clansmates in the real world. Yes, Elder. The group behind him nodded their heads. Elder Hua, we should be able to get some information from those around here. At this moment, the middle-aged man with short hair lowered his stance before Elder Hua before looking across to the martial artists from the underworld. Elder Hua closed his eyes. Seeing that the elder had signaled to him, the middle-aged man with short hair turned around instantly to face the crowd of martial artists from the underworld. When the martial artists from the underworld saw the ex-attendant of the Medical Saint sect, they took a deep breath. We are from the Medical Saint Immortal sect of the Yao Cauldron world. Disciples of our Medical Saint Immortal sect stood at the pinnacle of all immortal sects at one point in time. Soon, our Yao Cauldron world will descend into this world. All martial artists have to surrender. The middle-aged man with short hair lifted his hair slightly, looked down at the group of people, and spoke with a low and serious tone. Surrender. We surrender. The moment the middle-aged man with short hair finished his sentence, the group of martial artists from the underworld answered instantly. On your knees, an old man shouted suddenly. Yes, we will kneel right away. Upon hearing the shouts from the old man, the group of martial artists from the underworld felt extremely bitter. However, they took a deep breath to contain their indignance and went on their knees. Elder Hua looked satisfactorily at the kneeling martial artists from the underworld. A strong sense of superiority was written all over his cold face. Sect Leader 1, get your guys to collect all the information on the real world for us. The middle-aged man with short hair looked at the group who was kneeling before him and spoke slowly with the same sense of superiority. Yes, Hua Ten. Yes, Your Excellency. We will definitely complete what you have instructed. Leave the information gathering to us. Sect Leader 1 answered respectfully in a hurry. There's another matter. The middle-aged man with short hair lowered his head, stared at the sect leader of Qingfeng sect and said with a hideous expression, Find the location of the Dragon King. The Dragon King has annihilated our Medical Saint sect. We will rip him into 1,000,000 pieces. Yes. Sect Leader 1 nodded his head instantly. He was a little overwhelmed by the expression shown by the middle-aged man with short hair. Since he dared to kill our clan's mate, we will kill every single person who is related to the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect. Elder Hua, who was standing at one side, added coldly. SSS. Upon hearing him, the surrounding martial artists from the underworld gasped. Killing every single person related to the offender was the most brutal and gruesome punishment in ancient times. What it meant would be Wang Xian's kin would all be killed. Could this be what they referred to when saying that the authority of an immortal sect couldn't be tainted? However, the group of martial artists soon recalled the strength displayed by the Dragon King. Their eyebrows knitted together. Your Excellency, we know where the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect is. A cold light flashed across the eyes of sect leader Wan of Qingfeng's sect as he shouted loudly with deference. Huh? You guys know about his whereabouts? The middle-aged man with short hair was taken aback and followed up with a question. Yes, various excellencies. We know the whereabouts of this despot. Sect leader Wan answered loudly once again. Despot. The experts from the Yao Cauldron looked on, feeling a little baffled. The group of martial artists from the underworld was also surprised by what sect leader Wan had said. They lowered their heads and a glow flashed across their eyes. Half a month ago, the Dragon King had chased them out of MT Taibai. Hatred for the Dragon King had long been taking root in their hearts. Now that someone wanted to kill the Dragon King, this was something they were happy to see. That's right. He's a despot. After the Dragon King of the Dragon Sect annihilated the Medical Saint Sect, they annihilated several other sacred sects and clans thereafter. What's crueler was that half a month ago, he annihilated half the clans and sects in the entire underworld. There wasn't a day of peace for the underworld. He's a devil that has committed all sorts of sins and is extremely brutal. Sect leader Wan spoke as his eyes turned red. Damn it. Dense killing intent emanated from the eyes of the middle-aged man with short hair. However, this despot is exceptionally powerful with terrifying subordinates. The strength he has displayed was like those of an immortal that's incomparably powerful. Sect leader Wan continued his elaboration. Immortal? Contempt flashed across the face of Elder Hua as he snide, how strong could he be? Half a month ago, the Dragon King led 9 budding realm experts and easily killed 15 other budding realm experts. Moreover, the Dragon King displayed immense strength. He was able to kill 5 budding realm experts with 5 flying swords. He's unparalleled in this world. Sect leader Wan exaggerated a little in his illustration. That's right. Just as sect leader Wan has said, the Dragon King is a powerful despot. We hope your excellency will remove this scourge for the better of all. The clan leader of the Song family seconded the idea. 9 budding realm experts? Easily killed budding realm experts? Unparalleled in this world? Elder Hua was a little surprised. However, the edge of his lips curved up soon after. 9 budding realm experts? That Dragon King would at most be at the half-step to immortal realm. We do need to be a little more serious when going against this force. It seems like I have to be involved in the killing. Chapter 666, Get on your knees and prepare to be killed, 2. Chapter 666, Get on your knees and prepare to be killed, 2. Elder Hua, you don't have to do it personally just to slaughter a force from the real world. Just leave it to us. An old man beside Elder Hua said in a low voice, the martial artists in the real world have incomplete battle techniques. Even with the strength of the budding realm, one is still far from us. A half-step to immortal? I don't think there's one in the real world. The old man spoke with radiance flickering in his eyes. A force that possesses 9 budding realm experts was invincible in the real world. But to us, His face was full of contempt. That's right, Elder Hua. We have 25 budding realm experts with us this time. Just send any 10 of them and they could just kill them off. The middle-aged man spoke with a beaming face. Having 9 budding realm experts was indeed quite impressive. But to the people from Yao Cauldron world, annihilating them would be easy peasy. Moreover, this time they had brought 25 budding realm experts with them. As for that Dragon King who was known as a half-step to immortal expert, they did not really believe it. His strength was at most at pinnacle budding realm. 25 budding realm experts? How could it be possible? At this time, however, the group of martial artists of the underworld was horrified when they overheard their conversation. 25 budding realm experts? What kind of concept is this? If 25 of them strike together, they could level the entire Guda mountain range in less than 20 minutes. If they rage, wouldn't they be able to massacre half the country? I beg to ask a question, Your Excellencies. How many such terrifying people exist in your world? Sect leader Wan asked this in shock as he involuntarily wiped the beads of cold sweat from his forehead and swallowed his saliva. The middle-aged man with short hair peered at sect leader Wan and replied in a monotone voice. The mightiness of Yao Cauldron World is beyond what you can imagine. Inborn experts are merely average disciples while we have a few hundred budding realm experts. Even better, we have immortals who could truly whip up massive destruction to the world. The voice of that middle-aged man was ringing in the ears of many martial artists of the underworld as they revealed horrified expressions. Few hundred budding realm experts. Immortals who could genuinely whip up massive destruction to the world. Gosh. There are 9 such worlds and all of them are descending into the real world. By then all of you will just be small fries. The middle-aged man with short hair said with slight contempt. 9. All the martial artists of the underworld were aghast as their bodies stiffened up. The 9 cauldrons have transformed into dragon veins. This will be a good opportunity for all of you. Under the cleansing of the spiritual energy waterfall, you can greatly enhance your potential and strength. If you can advance to Inborn Realm, you may join our Medical Saint Immortal sect and Remedy Saint Immortal sect, said Elder Hua to the surrounding martial artists impassively. Really? Thank you, Your Excellency. We'll work hard and contribute our efforts to the immortal sects. The group of martial artists hurriedly flattered him at the top of their lungs. Your Excellencies, the Dragon King is at MT Tai Bai because there's one similar spiritual energy waterfall over there. You can head over and the Dragon King will be easily at your mercy. That's right, Your Excellency. Shall we lead the way to retrieve the head of the Dragon King? We can deal with those who are related to the Dragon King. All the inborn experts of the underworld pledged their loyalty immediately. Mighty Yao Cauldron World of the mighty 9 Cauldron Worlds. All these powerful worlds were going to descend into the real world. They needed to choose the correct side to stand on. Otherwise, their lives would be worse than that of a dog. After witnessing the power of the 9 Cauldron Worlds, the Dragon King was simply nothing. These 60 people from Yao Cauldron World could quickly annihilate the Dragon King, not to mention those real experts from the 9 Cauldron Worlds. In the future world, the Dragon King was just a pond loach and one that was waiting to be slaughtered. What they needed to do now was to follow these people before them. Oh, such a spiritual energy waterfall has already appeared? Elder Hua asked puzzledly. Yes, Your Excellency. This spiritual energy waterfall appeared at MT Tai Bai around 20 days ago. All the martial artists quickly responded to his question. 20 days? MT Tai Bai? It looks like Huang Cauldron World will be the first to descend into the real world. With beaming eyes, Elder Hua looked to an elder beside him. Elder Bien, you'll take 20 budding realm experts with you to kill that Dragon King while I stay put and guard this place. Sure. Leave that Dragon King to me. Elder Hua, you can make plans for the real world. Elder Bien smiled and nodded. Elder Bien, don't be careless. What if that Dragon King is really a half-step to Immortal Realm expert? If he really is, we'll join hands. That should suffice. Yes, Elder Bien. Come back soon. I'll take at most a day. The two of them were very relaxed, talking away. To them, they were not heading off to kill a strong enemy but rather an ant. Lead the way, said Elder Bien in a low voice as he swept his gaze across the martial artists of the underworld below. Your Excellency, let me take you guys there, said a disciple beside sect leader Wan after he gestured to him. Great. Her? Someone is heading this way. All of a sudden, an old man spun around and looked ahead. Close to 40 figures were flying in their direction at a rapid speed. Her? There are people on Good Mountain Range. It seems like we're not the first to arrive. While the group of people looked over, Wang Xian had already led a team of Dragon Sect members over. When he saw the thousands of people below the spiritual energy waterfall, Wang Xian revealed a faint smile on his face. Time to work on the second dragon vein. They are those martial artists of the underworld who I chased away. Wang Xian looked over and chuckled without any concern. He was not interested in who was in the mountains practicing there. Even if those people were the martial artists of the underworld who he had chased away half a month ago, it was none of his concern as usual. Those martial artists of the underworld were nothing but ants to him. In the near future, his real opponent would be those from the 9 Cauldron Worlds. Yes, Dragon King. It's him, the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. However, those martial artists let out exclamations as soon as Wang Xian and the Dragon Sect members approached. He's the Dragon King of Dragon Sect. Elder Hua was slightly surprised. Yes, that's him, the Dragon King and the experts from Dragon Sect. Sect leader Wan was staring at Wang Xian and his gang with a pair of blazing eyes. This was the first time that he dared to glare at Dragon King directly with eyes burning with fire. At the same time, it was the first time he was becoming thrilled. He was gloating at the misfortune of others while a tinge of a sneer flashed in his eyes. All the martial artists of the underworld were excited and elated. Well, we don't have to search high and low for him now. He's sending himself over here to claim his own death. Elder Hua revealed a grin on his face. For those who are approaching here, come over, get on your knees and prepare to die. Chapter 667, Arrogantly Superior and Disdainful. Chapter 667, Arrogantly Superior and Disdainful. For those who are approaching here, come over, get on your knees and prepare to die. Just as Wang Xian led the group of Dragonians towards Guda Mountain Range, a domineering command surprised him a little. Get on my knees and prepare to die. A flash of light flickered in Wang Xian's eyes. He looked towards the mountain peak below the spiritual energy waterfall and squinted his eyes. Dragon King, come here now and receive your death. An angry roar reverberated across from the middle-aged man with short hair who was staring at Wang Xian with blood-red eyes. The enmity for killing his father had ensured that it was impossible for them both to live under the same sky. People from the 9 cauldron worlds? Looking at the outfit of the group of people standing at the peak of the mountain, Wang Xian felt a sense of familiarity. The image of a sect surfaced in his mind. Medical Saint Sect. When the experts from the Medical Saint Sect were annihilated, some of them claimed that there would be people going after me and taking revenge for them. What a surprise. Medical Saint Sect is actually related to the 9 cauldron worlds. While Wang Xian was slightly surprised, a cold look appeared on his face the next instant. No matter which world they were from, as long as they dared to go against him, he would play along with them to the very end. Even if he was facing the 9 cauldron worlds, he wasn't afraid at all as he had the Dragon Palace. It wasn't like his Dragon Sect did not have an Immortal Realm expert. Wang Xian did not decelerate but instead landed on a mountain peak opposite the group. He smiled radiantly while observing the experts from one of the 9 cauldron worlds before him. Elder Hua and the rest of the group scrutinized Wang Xian with chilling looks. They were a little shocked by the one standing before him. He was too young. Outrageously young. Dragon King. You better get down on your knees to welcome the excellencies from the Yao Cauldron world. Ah, Dragon King, come over right now and get on your knees. Our excellencies might just grant you a swift death. Elder Wan from Qingfeng Sect and the group of experts from the Song family smirked as some of them chided Wang Xian. They lifted their heads proudly, looked fearlessly at Wang Xian and were a little excited. Hearing their snide remarks, ruthlessness gleamed in his eyes as he looked across the martial artists from the underworld. TSK, what are you looking at? You are just someone who is going to die soon. When the group of martial artists from the underworld met Wang Xian's gaze, they ridiculed him coldly. Dragon King, do you know your sins? The middle-aged man with short hair roared at Wang Xian with a solemn expression. Hee. Wang Xian chuckled nonchalantly as he looked across the group and asked, which cauldron world are you guys from? Huh. It seems like you know about the 9 cauldron worlds too. Elder Hua stared at Wang Xian and continued, what a shame for your talents. If you had not committed unforgivable sins, we would have taken you in as a disciple of our immortal sect. What a shame. You can't blame others for the sins you have committed. Dragon King, you killed my father and all the experts from our Medical Saint Sect. Today will be the day of your death. If we had not escaped in time before, our entire branch of the Medical Saint Sect would have been slaughtered by you. Rest assured, when you die, I won't let any of your kin get away. You won't have to worry about being lonely in hell, as your kin won't be able to escape. The middle-aged man with short hair growled while brimming with killing intent. The arrogantly superior old man, the middle-aged man with short hair who had announced that he would kill all his kin, and a group of martial artists from the underworld who was having fun while waiting for his impending miseries. Wang Xian's eyes gradually turned as cold as ice. Do you guys know that you are courting your own demise? Dragon King, How dare you speak to the excellencies from the Yao Cauldron world in such a manner? You must be too eager to meet your end. Today will be your last day alive. For your arrogance, death can be your only outcome. A young man shouted at Wang Xian with a face contorted from anger. Kill him as revenge for our clansmate. Seeing how Wang Xian was still daring to make brazen comments, Elder Hua wasn't interested in talking further to a person who was going to die. He immediately instructed his people. 9 budding realm experts? Let's hope that they will give us a good warm-up. At the back, the group of old men revealed faint smiles as they lifted the truncheons in their hands. Fiery red truncheons and jade-green truncheons glowed with blinding rays as though they were holy staffs. Die, the group shouted. On the peak where Wang Xian and the Dragonians were, the trees were growing at a tremendous speed. With over 10 budding realm experts striking at the same time, powerful wood attribute energy caused several thousand trees to grow to a few hundred meters instantly. Their branches wrapped towards Wang Xian and the Dragonians. It was the same attack. Wood fire burial. Wood fire burial. After that shout, a 5 to 6 meter long fireball appeared in the air and smashed towards the tree demons on the mountain peak. Rumble. This time it wasn't an attack from 5 budding realm experts. Instead, it was an attack launched by over 10 budding realm experts at the same time. Terrifying tree demons had locked down the entire mountain peak, blocking out any light. Branches moved towards Wang Xian and the group like a nest of snakes as the terrifying fireball landed on it and exploded. Rumble. The entire mountain peak was completely covered. Before the terrifying might, the entire peak was set ablaze before the eyes of the martial artists from the underworld. SSS. They are dead? I don't think they would die from that. The Dragon King is really strong. I feel that the Dragon King wouldn't die from just one attack. Some martial artists mumbled among themselves. All signs of life have dissipated. An old man who was holding a jade-green truncheon smiled faintly and remarked, "They are really trashy. When I heard about them, I still thought the Dragon King was reasonably strong. He couldn't even withstand an attack from us. We have 15 people attacking him at the same time. Moreover, the wood fire burial is a frightening combination battle technique. Even if they had twice the number of people, they would very likely have been annihilated by us directly, let alone just 9 budding realm experts." A middle-aged man with a fiery red truncheon lifted his head proudly and spoke. SSS, are they really dead? Killing them in a single strike. I still thought it would take at least 2 to 3 strikes. Your excellencies are truly too powerful. Ah, the Dragon King is finally dead. That arrogant brat is finally dead. When I find his corpse, I'm going to whip it. Under such terrifying attacks, his corpse has likely been reduced to ashes. The group of experts commented while deriving joy from the tragedy. I'm a little disappointed. Elder Hua shook his head lightly. He felt a little bored in seeing the Dragon King being killed so easily. He had still been a little wary initially. The real world was the real world after all. The real world couldn't be compared to them at all as the rest were just ants. Pah. At this moment, the sound of water dripping could be heard. Be careful. Suddenly, horrified screams from the martial artists of the underworld resounded. People from the underworld, get your ego in check and don't be haughty. It is especially so before me. A voice erupted from behind Elder Hua and the group. Suddenly, everyone could feel a chill running down their spine. Poof poof poof. Soon after, chilling cracking of bones could be heard. How can this be? How did they appear here? Elder Hua's eyes widened in disbelief as his hands, which held the truncheon, trembled. He looked with incredulity at his chest. A long sword had pierced through where his heart was. I'm a little disappointed. You guys are from one of the 9 cauldron worlds? You guys couldn't even survive a strike from me? Chapter 668 6 Feet Under. Chapter 668, 6 Feet Under. A sarcastic voice came from Wang Xian, ringing in the ears of everyone around him. Wang Xian slowly moved the spiritual sword in his hand. The weapons that belonged to the dragon sect disciples around him had penetrated every single one of the Yao Cauldron world experts. All 25 budding realm experts were hit with fatal strikes. Elder Hua. Oh no. The other 20-odd Dan realm experts who were not being attacked quickly spun around. They were shocked to see the immortal sect-level experts being struck in their vital points. This cannot be. It is impossible. I don't believe this. How did they suddenly appear behind all of us? This is unbelievable. The group of martial artists of the underworld was completely devastated after witnessing what had just happened. They could not accept what had just unfolded in front of their very eyes. 25 budding realm experts from the strongest immortal sects who were their future rulers of the world. An elder Hua who could always easily put up a tough fight against the strongest opponents. All of them were killed in an instant. As they watched the sharp weapons penetrating the bodies of the experts, the surrounding group of martial artists of the underworld was frightened out of their wits. Especially sect leader Wan from Qingfeng sect, the people from the Song clan and all the other experts who had just mocked Wang Xian moments ago. They felt tremendous fear. Even those who had not spoken a word just now were also secretly gloating over the misfortune of Wang Xian and his men. And now their supporting pillars were gone. What awaited them was the consequences of their actions. TSK, these are all very fine spiritual weapons. And this, a level 13 spiritual weapon fit for use by the immortals. Wang Xian said, marveling as he held Elder Hua's emerald truncheon in his hand. Most of the budding realm experts were wealthy enough to arm themselves with level 12 spiritual weapons. Inlaid on top of Elder Hua's emerald truncheon was the most precious wood spiritual bead that Wang Xian had ever seen. A level 13 wood spiritual bead. The other level 12 spiritual weapons were also embedded with all kinds of rare wood and fire spiritual beads. Wang Xian beamed at the sight of them. These precious spiritual beads were perfect resources that he needed to cultivate 2 level 13 Inferno and Wood Dragon Balls. Looking down blankly at the spiritual sword that was on his chest, Elder Hua was barely opening his mouth to speak. Instead of words, he coughed out a mouthful of blood. However, the experts from the budding realm had astonishing vitality. Even as their hearts were being punctured, they were still able to hold on very long to their last breath. But right now what Elder Hua felt was not pain but terror. You are not from the budding realm or the half-step immortal. You are an immortal. He said as he turned his stiff neck to face Wang Xian, still coughing up blood uncontrollably. It is too late to know how strong your opponent is now, don't you think? Wang Xian looked at him mockingly. SSS. Upon hearing Wang Xian admitting his status as an immortal, the remaining Yao Cauldron experts gasped with terror in their eyes. In particular, the middle-aged man with short hair. He was still in a state of shock and disbelief. The Dragon King is an immortal. To think that they were still plotting to kill an immortal and eliminate his bloodline. Haha. There are also many immortal experts in our Yao Cauldron world. By killing us today they will not let you off even if you are an immortal. Elder Hua said as he stared at Wang Xian with slackened eyes. His voice had started to croak. Don't worry. Nobody from your Yao Cauldron world can kill me. Rest in peace. The rest of these people will accompany you shortly. Wang Xian smiled as he slowly pulled out his spiritual sword. To think that I, Hua Qiudao, a high and mighty elder in the Yao Cauldron world, would end this way in this small underworld, said Elder Hua, refusing to resign to his demise. It was his misfortune and ill fate to make enemies with the immortal Dragon King. What I detest most is beings like you who think you are above everyone else. Displaying such an attitude in front of me will only make me bury you 6 feet under. Wang Xian's words rung in Elder Hua's ears as he stared coldly in return. You are ultimately not a god. You do not overlook our life and death. Wang Xian unsheathed his spiritual sword. The Dragonians around him had drawn their spiritual weapons as well. Bam, bam, bam. One by one the experts fell to the ground. Wang Xian did not bother looking at them and instead flew to a mountain peak beneath the spiritual energy waterfall. The second dragon vein. Wang Xian looked down at the peak with excitement. Haha. Such arrogance from the 9 cauldron worlds. You are not the first person from those worlds to be killed by our Dragon King, and most likely won't be the last either. Dragon Kid spoke with an ear-piercing voice. He surveyed the surroundings with his bloodshot eyes, smacked his tongue, and gradually raised his spiritual blade. Mo Qinglong did not stop the Dragonians. Anyone who tried to deal with the Dragon King and harm him deserved to die. Arg! The shrill cries of death made the hearts of the martial artists of the underworld pound rapidly. Fear was looming in their hearts. The Dragon King was an immortal. Elder Hua, who they had regarded as invincible, had mentioned an immortal expert, and this was it. A true immortal expert before them. They did not know how incredibly powerful an immortal was, but they had an idea of how strong the 25 budding realm experts were. And now, none of those experts from the budding realm and Yao Cauldron world were spared from death. Ah, the taste of blood is so delicious. What a waste that it could not be used to irrigate the pure blood corals. Wow. Kill. One of the Dragonians talked to himself as he licked the blood off his spiritual sword. With a turn of his body, he attacked the group of onlooking martial artists of the underworld. No, they are going to kill us. The massacre party was just getting started. Wang Xian's face lit up with a smile as he heard the wails of the dying masses, seeing the blood essence flowing into the dragon vein. Done. Now we wait for the birth of the dragon vein. It's time to return home. Let's go. Wang Xian left without looking at the dead silent aftermath of the bloodshed. His memories brought him back to the time when the Dragon Palace had been established and the killings that took place. The scenes of countless lives being lost resurfaced in front of him. For many rulers, the path to victory was paved by endless corpses. Those who win get to have their noses up in the air, while those who lose will have their bodies buried 6 feet under. Haha, I found the spiritual energy waterfall. In less than half an hour, another group of martial artists was seen approaching the spiritual energy waterfall. As they looked at the waterfall, far off in mid-air, their eyes became filled with anticipation. They quickened their pace and moved swiftly towards the waterfall. When they finally reached the foot of the mountain, their faces turned pale. They stared at the horrifying scene and broke out in a cold sweat as terror struck them. The place was filled with lifeless corpses. At the same time, another group of menacing-looking experts was spotted in the air. There were about 30 of them, each emitting an aura of terror and might. They had no intention of hiding that they were a bunch of bashful and overbearing beings. Up ahead is the Yao Cauldron world. I wonder if any of the experts have arrived early. Start occupying the spiritual energy waterfall and move according to plan. As the booming voices sounded in the skies, another 9 Cauldron Worlds experts appeared. The heyday of the 9 Cauldron Worlds was about to begin. Chapter 669. Join? Chapter 669. Join? A flourishing age was about to begin. Ka. When Wang Xian was flying towards MT Taibai, a terrifying event was happening in the sky above MT Taibai. Sounds of space cracking resounded, alerting all the martial artists who were cultivating. It had been half a month since the battle on MT Taibai. At this moment, several hundreds of thousands of people were scattered densely across the mountain. Among these hundreds of thousands of people, there was a large number of wealthy people and members of some clans that had just entered the ancient martial arts world. With several hundreds of thousands of people occupying this space, there were lots of people becoming martial artists or powerful and born experts each day. Practicing martial arts could also strengthen one's body. Once many people didn't know how. With the spiritual energy waterfall falling on their bodies now, everyone could become a powerful martial artist. What's happening? The cracking sounds in the air stunned everyone below the spiritual energy waterfall. All of them lifted their heads while staring into the sky. Oh gosh! What's happening? The sky is breaking up. The space has been ripped apart. What's the situation? What's happening? When the martial artists below the spiritual energy waterfall saw a crack that appeared across the sky suddenly, all of them were astonished. Some martial artists retreated in fear immediately. In the blink of an eye, the entire region became chaotic. Xiao Xian, Lan Qingyue and the other 3 lifted their heads and squinted their eyes. Based on what Xiao Xian had said, the people from the 9 Cauldron Worlds must have arrived before the estimated date. Be careful. The 5 girls stared at the sky vigilantly. Ka. Before the astonished eyes of the crowd, a large crack was ripped open in the space above them. The entire crack reached an astounding range of 100 meters. Another sky. There's another sky on the other end. At this moment, an inborn expert exclaimed loudly in shock. From the crack in the space that was ripped open, they could see another world. This terrified a large number of people. What's really happening? Could it be that aliens are invading our world? A young man mumbled while watching in astonishment. Is this one of the 9 Cauldron Worlds that Brother Wang Xian mentioned previously? Sui Huang and Xiao Quanshan exchanged glances before turning their attention to the crack. Someone has come out from the crack. Another exclamation reverberated as everyone's eyes couldn't help but constrict. From the other world, another human had appeared. There are lots of them. A light flickered in Xiao Yu's eyes as he stared intensely at the people from one of the 9 cauldron worlds. Ah! After a peal of laughter, a man emerged from the crack on a sword. The spiritual sword made an arc in the air as he laughed loudly. The new world. I'm finally here. Flying on a sword? Is that an immortal? Seeing the figure that flew out from the crack on a sword, many martial artists were astounded. Swish, swish, swish. At this moment, experts wearing green and white outfits flew out from the crack on their swords one after another. Soon there were close to 400 to 500 people. The crack is healing. There are so many of them. Roughly 500. When Xiao Xian saw the martial artists that had arrived on their swords resembling immortals, she was astounded. They are finally here. I wonder what changes they will bring to the real world. No one could really know what this group of people will do. Luckily there aren't any immortal realm experts. Sun Lingxiu's eyes flickered as she looked at the group of people standing in the air. 500-odd people wasn't a small number. Their green and white outfits fluttered in the wind and each of them stood proudly in the air. There are quite a number of people here. Are these the martial artists of the current underworld? The first person who emerged from the crack made a circle while observing the new world with interest. Below him, all the martial artists were silent as they stared blankly at him. The 500-odd experts who were standing on their swords in the air looked around them. This was also their first time in this world. We are from the Huang Cauldron world. Get someone who can make a decision to speak to us. An old man looked down while standing on his spiritual sword and questioning in a solemn tone. All the martial artists were taken aback and turned their attention to where Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue and the girls were at. Everyone in the underworld knew who they were and their status. They were the sister and women of the Dragon King. They were also the strongest among them. Feeling the gazes from the crowd of martial artists, Xiao Yu and the girls frowned slightly. We welcome everyone from the 9 cauldron worlds. Lan Qingyue took a step forward, clasped her right fist with her left palm and spoke with great composure. You know we are from the 9 cauldrons worlds? The young man who was flying on his sword steered his sword towards Lan Qingyue, stopped roughly 10 meters away and asked curiously, are there people from the other 9 cauldron worlds that have appeared in this world? They have not truly shown themselves. I believe you guys are the first batch that has come in such a big group to this world. Lan Qingyue replied to the young man. You are the leader of them? Their ruler? The old man in the air moved and appeared beside the young man. The surrounding martial artists around them that were on their swords looked around curiously while feeling a little overwhelmed. In the end, all their attention fell on Lan Qingyue, Xiao Yu and the girls. We are from the dragon sect of the underworld. Lan Qingyue said to the old man while also observing the group of people before them. There were roughly 20 people with strength that was equivalent to hers. As for the rest, they were all Dan realm experts. The old man, who was the only one in a golden outfit, made them feel a little wary. His strength was well hidden and would at least be at the half-step to immortal realm. What made them feel a little more assured was that this group of people didn't seem to have come with a vengeance. In addition, none of them were acting as though they were high and mighty kings. Dragon sect? It must be a powerful sect in the underworld. The old man looked across them before looking over to the surrounding crowd of martial artists. He was slightly surprised and commented, we are from the Yellow Sky Immortal sect of the Huang Cauldron world. Ka ka ka. Just as the old man finished his words, in the sky a short distance away, sounds of the space breaking could be heard again. The old man frowned slightly. Those that had come with him were also frowning while their eyes turned as cold as ice. It must be those brats from the primeval Chaos Immortal sect. The young man beside the old man smirked and commented coldly. The surrounding martial artists of the underworld were taken aback as they revealed astounded expressions. There were more people from the Huang Cauldron world that were arriving. Ka. A golden light appeared across the sky as figure after figure walked out from the crack. All of them lifted their heads arrogantly and were staring at the old man and the group that had arrived moments ago. Feng Jinqing, you guys sure are early. The golden ray faded gradually and a few hundred figures appeared in the air. They smiled at that old man and remarked plainly. You guys aren't too slow either, the old man in the golden outfit replied emotionlessly. There's quite a number of people around. Chapter 670 Xiao Yu's Battle, 1. Chapter 670, Xiao Yu's Battle, 1. Dressed in golden armor like a heavenly general, the old man looked around with a smiling face. Behind him were a few hundred people in golden armor too. Second Grandpa, according to the news we got, the current underworld has completely gone downhill. But now, it doesn't seem to be that bad since there are a few hundred inborn experts, said the young man beside the armored elder who was staring at the martial artists of the underworld with eyes full of golden radiance. That's due to the spiritual energy waterfall. Half a month is good enough to undergo a complete change. The old armored man was also beaming with golden radiance in his eyes. He swept a gaze at the martial artists below. Not bad. After cleansing, there will be many potential cultivators. Who's in charge over here? The old armored man slightly lifted his head up, and his voice reverberated through the air. Guys, we're from Dragon Sect and we call the shots here. Lan Qingyue cupped her fist once again to those experts that came out from the Huang Cauldron world. Her? The in-charges are a few pretty girls. Dragon Sect? From now on, the Dragon Sect will join Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect and become our disciples, the old armored man said to Lan Qingyue in a domineering way. Jin Kunming, they belong to Yellow Sky Immortal Sect. You're too late. The old man in golden clothing said to the old armored man coldly. Her? Upon hearing the words, the old armored man darkened his expression. Did you just say we're too late? That's right. The old man in golden clothing nodded gently with a beaming face as he exchanged a glance with the other old man. We, the Dragon Sect, will not join any immortal sects. At this time, Xiao Yu lifted her eyebrows and answered upon hearing their conversation. Haha, Feng Jinqing. Did you hear that? They disagree with joining Yellow Sky Immortal Sect. Hearing what Xiao Yu said, the old armored man who was sulking burst out a clap of laughter. Stupid girl. The young man beside Feng Jinqing glared at Xiao Yu angrily. You're the stupid one. So dumb. Who says we're joining the Yellow Sky Immortal Sect? Xiao Yu returned that young man a death stare immediately. You need some teaching. Seeing Xiao Yu glaring at him, the young man pointed at her with slight embarrassment. You deserve a beating. Xiao Yu beckoned with her fingers without showing any feebleness. On top of that, her face was full of contempt. Haha, interesting. The wicked prince of the Huang Cauldron world is challenged by a lass from the real world. How embarrassing. At this time, the young man beside the old armored man Jin Kunming trolled the other young man. Jin Huyo, shut up, will you? If you're not convinced, you can spar with me. Upon hearing what Jin Huyo said, that young man was infuriated. Haha, I was not the one who said you deserve a beating. Jin Huyo raised an eyebrow and trolled him. Lass, don't assume that because you're a girl I won't bully you. Wait till I teach you a lesson. That young man jumped, and his green robe and white shirt billowed without any wind. His long hair gave him the classic look of a handsome boy. However, he was slightly furious. Idiot. Just a slight provocation and you're losing your cool. Seeing that the young man was staring daggers at her, Xiao Yu snorted. Lan Qingyue, Sun Lingxiu and the rest laughed but said nothing. None of the people before them were immortal class. With the few of them around, they had nothing to be afraid of. Moreover, Xiaoxian would be back in no time. They could still run. You. The young man was raging while Jin Huyo and some of the young men beside him were sneering at him. Lass, I'll make you kneel before me and beg for my mercy. Just you alone? Xiao Yu rolled her eyes at him. Fine, prepare to receive my strike. The young man was boiling with anger. He had just arrived in the real world and was being ridiculed by a lass. To think he was the famous wicked prince in the Huang Cauldron world. Since when had anyone rolled their eyes at him? With a swift movement, green radiance flashed, and the spiritual sword in his hand struck at a daunting speed. You really deserve a beating. Come and lick my shoes. Seeing that the young man struck at her, Xiao Yu pouted and went for it. The sister of the Dragon King and that young man are fighting it out. The group of people standing in the air is too formidable. One might be in danger if they engage in a conflict. Danger? Who knows how strong the Dragon King is? Besides, Princess Xiao Yu apparently knew about the 9 cauldron worlds. In my opinion, the Dragon King might not be scared of them. That's right. There is no boundary to the Dragon King's strength. If they ever hurt Princess Xiao Yu, it'll be hard to know who the unlucky one is. The group of martial artists commented as they watched Xiao Yu dueling with the young man from the Huang Cauldron world. The Dragon King had always made their jaws drop by killing all the different experts. Many of them were worshipping the Dragon King blindly. So what if those people came from the space crack? In the past, during the fight between the Dragon King Nie Wushuang and Emperor Qi, they also broke through the space. TSK, what princess? She's not even fit to be a maidservant. Upon hearing the comments from below, the young man spoke scornfully, sending the sword in his hand towards Xiao Yu at a daunting speed. Someone with fair and tender skin like you could be a prince? You are the eunuch of the palace, right? There was a tinge of surprise flashing in Xiao Yu's eyes as soon as she saw the incoming spiritual sword. She quickly dodged to one side. Bam! The sword brushed across the black armor of Xiao Yu at a fast speed, leaving a faint white mark on it. Her? Xiao Yu was surprised by the speed of the spiritual sword, while the young man was taken aback by the body defense of Xiao Yu. Lass, how dare you say I'm a eunuch? It seems that I'll have to teach you a proper lesson today. A furious flame darted out from the eyes of that young man. He could imagine the sneering looks from those scumbags of primeval chaos immortal sect after the last said he was a eunuch. Feng Jinqing remained quiet as he watched the battle continuing between that young man and that girl. Revealing that young man's strength to deter the martial artists of the real world was not a bad choice either. Wind leaves no trace, but a sword leaves a shadow. Sword shadow. The young man fixed his eyes on Xiao Yu, wielding the spiritual sword in his hand. Instantly, gusts of wind energy gathered around the spiritual sword. Thousands of swords enveloped Xiao Yu. Sword slash. Xiao Yu was looking stern as she swung her left arm, bringing out a colossal ivory shield. The other hand stuck the young man with a black sword. Bam bam bam. Thousands of swords left only faint marks on Xiao Yu's ivory shield despite them being level 12 spiritual swords. Only mere white dots were left on the shield. What? There was a slight change in the young man's expression. He was stunned as his spiritual swords were unable to break through that ivory shield's defense. Seeing Xiao Yu sweeping in for an attack, he exclaimed loudly. Wind blast. Chapter 671 Xiao Yu's Battle, 2. Chapter 671, Xiao Yu's Battle, 2. Wind blast. The young man waved his arm and a strong gust of wind that covered over 1,000 meters swept towards Xiao Yu. The wind blast swept across like a tornado. Xiao Yu snorted and a pair of bone wings appeared behind her in the next instant. The bone wings emitted a black glow as she flapped them lightly. Xiao Yu was unmoved as she charged through the approaching wind blast and directly towards the young man. What? This witch is really strong. The young man exclaimed in surprise once again. Shifting his palm, sword after sword flew out from his space ring. Each sword emitted a dense green glow with layers of wind blades circling it. Weapon set. A set of spiritual equipment made up of 9 separate swords. Moreover, every single sword was a powerful level 12 spiritual sword. 10 pieces of level 12 spiritual equipment. He's darned rich. The spiritual equipment on him definitely played a part in Feng Lingtian being the most demon-like talent in our Huang Cauldron world. That girl isn't simple at all. From her looks, she's probably as old as Feng Lingtian. Yet, her strength is truly terrifying. That girl has the strength of a budding realm expert and the spiritual equipment on her isn't simple either. That's a little beyond our expectation. How can this be possible? Lingtian is the most outstanding talent in our Huang Cauldron world. Yet, he is on the losing end against another girl. Surrounding the battle, the crowd of people from the Huang Cauldron world looked on in shock at the battle between the young man and Xiao Yu. The young man was the most demon-like talent in the entire Huang Cauldron world and the youngest son of their immortal sects. He had inherited the bloodline of his father. He had reached the budding realm in his 20s and was undoubtedly the strongest among those at his age. He was also considered by the disciples of immortal sects in Huang Cauldron world to be the most demon-like prince. However, the most elite talent of their Huang Cauldron world was being pushed back by a girl in the real world where they had all believed the people were extremely weak. To make things worse, the girl was roughly the age of Feng Lingtian. Everyone was astonished, including Feng Jinqing, whose eyes were flickering. With your level of strength, what gives you the guts and confidence to call yourself young master and act arrogantly to me, your mom? At this moment, Xiao Yu easily defended against the attacks from Feng Lingtian. The bone wings behind her black flapped steadily and she held a bone sword in one hand and a shield with the other. Her defensive strength was insanely high. Feng Lingtian's attack couldn't injure her in any way. This is what you are asking for. Saber Hurricane. Feng Lingtian was clearly embarrassed. He extended both of his arms and manipulated the 10 pieces of level 12 spiritual equipment to circulate around him. The body as the blade slash. Boom. Resembling a scale 10 hurricane, terrifying daggers of green-colored energy were forming rapidly around Feng Lingtian. Green-colored energy gathered and formed into swords around him. Spiritual swords and green wind blades that extended over 100 meters surrounded the young man and rotated at an immense speed. Wind attribute was easily one of the fastest among all elements. Boom. Following a series of bone-chilling whistles, the swords were launched towards Xiao Yu. I'll show you my true strength. Xiao Yu had gotten serious. She shook the long sword in her arms and the bone sword extended. In an instant, the bone sword had turned into a black ivory whip that was several dozens of meters long. Terrifying spikes that curved backwards were distributed throughout the ivory whip, making it look extremely gruesome. Xiao Yu swung her arm down and the ivory whip was flicked towards the young man like an attacking viper. The bone wings, bone shield, and even the ivory whip were part of Xiao Yu's body. Controlling them was extremely easy. The ivory whip penetrated through the saber hurricane and wrapped towards Feng Lingtian. Fuck. Feng Lingtian's face darkened upon seeing the attacking ivory whip. The next instant, he directed the level 12 spiritual swords around him towards the whip. Pa. However, the ivory whip wrapped itself around each long sword and eventually around Feng Lingtian before he could even react to it. TSK. Let's see if you still dare to fight with your mom. Xiao Yu pulled her arm back as she shouted. Feng Lingtian was extremely bitter. Just as he attempted to break free, the ivory whip extended even longer and had him completely subdued. His body flew towards Xiao Yu at a terrifying speed. Hey girl, stop. Feng Jinqing was flabbergasted when he saw Feng Lingtian being trapped. He waved his arm and a wind blade slashed towards Xiao Yu. Bam. It's just sparring. Sun Lingxiu swung his arms and a ray of light met the wind blade, neutralizing it. Bam. Having retracted her ivory whip, Xiao Yu stepped on Feng Lingtian's face as she asked, "Do you admit your defeat now?" You. A burning sensation cruised through his body as his face turned as dark as coal. He felt as though he had just been forced to eat shit. Pa. Xiao Yu waved her ivory whip which landed on his buttocks directly. At that moment, Feng Lingtian felt as though his flesh was split. Looking down at Feng Lingtian who was below her feet, Xiao Yu smirked and asked again, "Are you going to admit your defeat?" Arg. You. Feng Lingtian's expression changed drastically. He felt that his pants had definitely split and there was definitely blood on his buttocks. Moreover, he felt his face was completely swollen. This filled him with humiliation. Stop. Seeing that Sun Lingxiu stopped his attack, Feng Jinqing was slightly surprised. When he witnessed Feng Lingtian being humiliated, the vibes around him changed and a terrifying explosion of aura erupted from him. At that very moment, the color of the sky changed and the surrounding space seemed to have stopped. There wasn't a single gust of wind and everything was silent. TSK. Xiao Yu was shocked by the aura from the old man. She pulled back the ivory whip in her hands and mocked Feng Lingtian. Coward. I look down on you. What kind of man are you if you are asking the elder in your family to stand up for you after losing to me? You. Feng Lingtian was extremely bitter and stared at Xiao Yu. His eyes were full of indignance and anger. What are you looking at? If you've got the guts, let's go for a one-on-one battle again. Xiao Yu gave him a thumbs down with disdain. You have gone too far. Feng Lingtian almost threw up blood upon seeing Xiao Yu's expression. He was the demon-like prince of the Huang Cauldron world and yet he had not lost in the hands of a little brat in the real world. Moreover, his face had been stepped on and his buttocks whipped by her. His pride as a man was completely shattered. Around them, members of the higher management of the Yellow Sky Immortal sect were dumbfounded at the words of their prince. Their expressions were a great scene to witness. However, while they were astonished, they were also shocked by Xiao Yu's strength. Terrifying. He wasn't called the most demon-like prince in the Huang Cauldron world for nothing. He was also the strongest disciple among the younger generation of the three immortal sects. I bully you and you are getting your elders? Xiao Yu lifted her head with contempt, making Feng Lingtian almost throw up blood from anger. He rubbed his face and still threw up after failing to keep it in. Ah, great. Who would have expected this? Who would have expected these girls to possess such strength in the underworld and to have established such a powerful dragon sect? At this moment, Jin Kunming's eyes lit up. He stared at Xiao Yu and said, I represent the immortal realm excellencies of our primeval chaos immortal sect. Join our primeval chaos immortal sect and I'll grant you girls 3 elders' positions and a large amount of spiritual equipment and elixir pills. I'm sorry. We have said that we aren't going to join any immortal sect. Lan Qingyue looked across and shook her head at them. The 9 cauldron worlds will descend into the real world soon. The immortal sects will rule the world. There are things you can't control while being in the underworld. Even if you don't wish to, you still have to accept it. Jin Kunming squinted his eyes as he looked at Lan Qingyue and the girls. Chapter 672, You Can't Have Your Will When You're in the Underworld. Chapter 672, You Can't Have Your Will When You're in the Underworld. There are things you can't control while being in the underworld. After Jin Kunming finished, Jin Huio beside him drew his lips. He sized those people up, including Xiao Yu and Lan Qingyue, with an unknown glimmer in his eyes. How many budding realm experts are there in Dragon Sect? Regardless of the number of budding realm experts you have, do you have any immortals? If you don't have immortal experts, any non-immortal sects will be just ants after the 9 cauldron worlds descend into the real world. Any immortal sect could annihilate you guys with just a lift of a finger. Hence, your best choice is to join Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect. As he spoke, he swept his gaze across those martial artists of the underworld. Those who have advanced to Inborn Realm are qualified to join Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect. Those who are not can become menial disciples. That's right, this is not an invitation, but... Jin Kunming opened his mouth while his hand took out a little golden bell. The bell slowly grew larger in size in his palm. Boom. The sound of the bell echoed, just like a clap of thunder. It's the Emperor's bell. Feng Jinqing at one side, revealed a shocked expression while he let out an exclamation involuntarily. Emperor's bell. Little did I expect them to bring the Emperor's bell of Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect here. The Emperor's bell is a compelling spiritual weapon of immortal class level. It can grow in size and emit golden radiance for a complete wipeout. Be it besieging or killing people, its strength is extremely daunting. The disciples of Yellow Sky Immortal Sect were looking all stern as they stared at the golden bell with a surprised look. The Emperor's bell rose to the air, and grew to a size of 100 meters, exuding domineering mightiness. From today onwards, the Dragon Sect members will join our Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect. Any objections? You, martial artists of the underworld, will join Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect. Any objections? The bright and clear voice reverberated across over a radius of 10 kilometers, striking terror into every martial artist. All of them had the impulse to worship the Emperor's bell in the air. What a mighty power! They are not even the strongest among the immortal sects. How scary could the immortals they mentioned be such that we are ants if we don't join the immortal sect? Is that the strength of an immortal sect? Can Dragon Sect resist it? This golden bell is too domineering. What a mighty power! The group of martial artists of the underworld was aghast as they lifted their heads with difficulties. Their legs were even trembling. Even an inborn expert could not directly gaze at that golden bell. You can't have your will when you're in the underworld. All the experts of the underworld had mixed expressions. If the 9 powerful worlds were going to descend into the real world, they were only left with joining the immortal sect. Staying out was impossible as this was the underworld. This is our first time being forced to join the immortal sect. Lan Qingyue cast a gaze at the Emperor's bell in the air before she turned to look at Jin Kunming with a slightly stern look. We have no choice. Jin Kunming revealed a faint smile. Before all the immortal sects arrive in the real world, we came out in advance to set our ground. Controlling some of the underworld forces in the real world is our best choice. You can't have your will when you're in the underworld, not even for the immortal sects. Thus, surrender to our immortal sect. After Jin Kunming finished his overbearing speech, all the experts from Primeval Chaos Immortal Sect moved under the Emperor's bell. Close to 30 domineering budding realms were shrouded under the dazzling golden radiance of the Emperor's bell. As they exuded their godlike mightiness, they looked as though they were the golden guards and generals from heaven. Under the Emperor's bell, their strength received a significant boost. We're too late. Feng Jinqing was looking dreadful at one side. Their most wicked disciple in the immortal sect had lost to a girl, undermining the reputation of the Yellow Sky Immortal sect. And now, the primeval Chaos Immortal sect had established an invincible prestige with the help of the mighty Emperor's bell. The Dragon sect might just join the primeval Chaos Immortal sect too. Last, join the Yellow Sky Immortal sect, and you'll get enough benefits. Feng Lingtian darkened his expression once he realized the problem. Thus he growled at Xiao Yu with a low voice. Join a loser like you. Xiao Yu slightly lifted her head and sneered at Feng Lingtian. You. Seeing her expression, Feng Lingtian almost wanted to vomit blood. It's true that you can't have your will in the underworld. But dragons can roar through the sky in the underworld, said Lan Qingyue as she stared at the old man with a broad smile. Her? So you're saying you want to rule the world? Jin Kunming narrowed his eyes as he stared at Lan Qingyue. Those budding realm experts from Primeval Chaos Immortal sect on the top glared at Lan Qingyue. A domineering godlike mightiness enveloped her immediately. With a change in her expression, gray energy rose from Lan Qingyue. I'll give you one last chance. Jin Kunming continued to fix his expressionless eyes on Lan Qingyue. If the dragon sect agreed to join, that would be the best. Otherwise it did not matter. They wanted to build their prestige and godlike reputation. It was not a bad idea to use them as an example to forewarn the rest. SSS. All the experts below revealed stern looks. All of them could tell what Jin Kunming was trying to do. Their expressions were extremely complicated. I don't think Dragon King could beat the mightiness exuded by the huge golden bell in the air. Plus 30 domineering budding realm experts. I guess the dragon sect is in trouble this time. At this time, all the martial artists of the underworld had cold feet. These people before them were invincible. Lan Qingyue, Sun Lingxiu, Ajaya, Xiao Yu and Elder Feng were looking dreadful. Without the presence of that terrifying Emperor's bell, they would have had the confidence of breaking through the siege. But that Emperor's bell of level 13 was much scarier than the level 13 truncheon in Ajaya's hand. Her? At this time Xiao Yu sensed something. She quickly gazed off and exhibited a smile. Brother is back. Her? Lan Qingyue and the rest were slightly stunned as they spun around and heaved a sigh of relief. Smiles surfaced on their faces. Oh really? More and more people came from the 9 cauldron worlds. Wang Xian had rushed over here from Guda Mountain Range. Seeing the Emperor's bell that was emitting godlike mightiness above MT Taibai, he let out a sigh. Cold radiance flashed in his eyes. I have never provoked anyone from the 9 cauldrons worlds. But if people from these worlds provoke me, don't blame me for it. Wang Xian's eyes were getting colder as he hovered to Lan Qingyue and Xiao Yu at a rapid speed. Who are you? Jin Kunming shouted coldly when he saw Wang Xian and a group of Dragonians flying over. He narrowed his eyes slightly. Wang Xian took a glance at him and ignored him. Seeing that Lan Qingyue was shrouded within the mightiness of the golden bell, murderous intent flashed in his eyes. A really good saying you've got. You can't have your will when you're in the underworld. I don't wish to kill, but people just want to dig their own graves. I'm killing you guys. Wang Xian's cold voice echoed. Chapter 673 Peerless in the World. Chapter 673, Peerless in the World. I'm killing you guys. When Wang Xian's voice reverberated across, the hundreds of thousands of martial artists from the underworld gasped. They looked to the sky instantly. When they saw that familiar figure, their eyes lit up. The Dragon King is still the Dragon King. He's still as domineering and fearless in the face of strong enemies. The crowd of martial artists from the underworld couldn't help but be impressed. A guy courting his own death. Upon hearing Wang Xian, killing intent flashed across Jin Kunming's eyes as he stared harshly at Wang Xian. This is? The group of experts from the Yellow Sky Immortal sect stared at Wang Xian in astonishment. Who is he? What gives him the guts to be so arrogant? Wang Xian's cold gaze swept across the surrounding crowd and eventually landed on Lan Qingyue, Xiao Yu and the girls. He asked, "What's the matter?" Brother, they are forcing our dragon sect to join the primeval chaos immortal sect. If we don't agree, they are going to annihilate us. Xiao Yu pointed at Jin Kunming and the group while speaking with anger. 9 budding realm experts and a group of Dan realm experts. It's not surprising that you are so arrogant and haughty. Jin Huio stared harshly at Wang Xian and remarked, "It seems like you guys aren't willing to join our primeval chaos immortal sect." Wang Xian turned around gradually and his gaze fell on the group from the primeval chaos immortal sect. He said, "I'll give you guys 2 options too right now. Get down on your knees now or die." Ah. Upon hearing Wang Xian, Jin Huio couldn't help but burst into laughter. "Brat, what the hell are you saying?" "What am I saying?" Wang Xian's eyes flickered while staring at Jin Huio. He waved his arm and a water rope appeared around his neck all of a sudden. Jin Huio was astonished. Even Jin Kunming, who was standing by the side, was taken aback as his pupils constricted unconsciously. Slash. Jin Kunming lifted his palm and slashed down on the water rope. Wang Xian wasn't bothered at all. The water rope glowed in brilliant blue light. Wang Xian gave it a tug and Jin Huio was pulled towards him directly. What? Jin Huio was flabbergasted as he released dense golden rays from his body. Bam. However, at this instant, a short figure flashed across everyone's eyes. The skull exploded and fresh blood splattered everywhere. Darn piece of shit. You won't have to know what our Dragon King is saying ever again. Dragon Spirit held a dagger in his hand and his emotionless voice resounded. Boom. When Jin Huio was killed directly, the group from the primeval chaos immortal sect was instantly roused. How dare you kill the people from our primeval chaos immortal sect? You guys are definitely going to die. Jin Kunming's expression was a little contorted from anger as he growled. His angry roar reverberated throughout the surrounding 10 kilometers. It seems like you guys are choosing the second option. In that case, just die. Wang Xian lifted his arm and 5 flying swords flew out of his space ring instantly. Ah! Kill. Behind him, the group of Dragonians moved and charged towards the experts from the primeval chaos immortal sect directly. Kill them. Witnessing Wang Xian and the group's overbearing actions, Jin Kunming shouted angrily. He lifted both of his hands and the Emperor's bell glowed dazzlingly under his control. Asking my dragon sect to join your immortal sect? Is your primeval chaos immortal sect qualified? Wang Xian stared at Jin Yuankuan. Moving his hands slightly, 5 level 12 spiritual swords attacked suddenly. Layers of ripples were formed over the 5 spiritual swords. This was the tear blade technique. Under the frightening controllability of Wang Xian, the tear blade technique could reach several tens of tiers. In other words, a single attack would damage one several tens of times. Boom. At this instant, the golden light in the sky illuminated the entire space. Terrifying sounds carried immense golden-colored energy and swept towards Wang Xian. Level 13 spiritual equipment. How well could you utilize the strength in it? Contempt filled Wang Xian's eyes. He flexed his body and a ball of water energy instantly surrounded the Emperor's bell. The water energy was pumped under the impact of the golden-colored energy. However, the golden rays weren't able to penetrate the water energy. This isn't possible. This is spiritual equipment used by an immortal. Jin Kunming was at a loss of words when he saw Wang Xian instantly stopping the attack of the Emperor's bell. With a horrified expression, he stared at Wang Xian. You are an immort. Swish swish swish. However, at this instant, 5 spiritual swords landed on the golden defensive outfit on him. The spiritual swords penetrated through his body easily. Oh? Jin Kunming's eyes widened with disbelief and indignance as his jaw dropped. Unable to put up any resistance. He was killed instantly without even being able to put up any forms of resistance. Sword explosion. Wang Xian turned around, manipulated the 5 spiritual swords to stick together and surrounded them with a blue-colored ball of light. Boom. 1,000-meter-long sword slashed across the experts from the primeval chaos immortal sect. Shit. Stop it. Stop it. 30 budding realm experts from the primeval chaos immortal sect were completely scared out of their wits as some of them screamed. Layer after layer of golden doors appeared before them. Explode. Wang Xian shouted. Several 1,000-meter-long swords exploded, transforming into countless water swords that were only a meter long and launched towards the group of budding realm experts. The 5 pieces of spiritual equipment were the fiercest weapons. As they slashed across, they severed the head of budding realm expert after budding realm expert. Arg. 30 budding realm experts were dying at a frightening speed. Experts were like dogs and easily slaughtered. Around them, the Dragonians emitted a pungent smell of blood as they charged ahead for the kill. Gulp. Immortal. Feng Jinqing's eyes widened, and he stood on the spot and stared at Wang Xian in horror. His body was shivering a little from fear. Everything was like an ant before an immortal. Only an immortal would be an extraordinary existence. However, they would have never expected this young man to be an immortal. To their astonishment, the leader of the dragon sect was an immortal. There is an immortal realm existence in the real world. The other people from the Yellow Sky immortal sect around him could also feel their scalps going numb. Budding realm experts were dying with just a wave of his hand. If he wasn't at the immortal realm, who would be? The Dragon King is invincible. The Dragon King is awesome. The crowd of martial artists from the underworld below the battle was completely stunned. Their eyes widened and were filled with admiration and shock. Once again, the Dragon King had easily annihilated experts whom they had thought were invincible. Some martial artists even wanted to go on their knees and pray to Wang Xian. Too strong. He's truly peerless in the world. The brother of that brat is an immortal realm existence just like my father. Feng Lingtian's expression darkened and his legs went soft. He felt extremely bitter and embarrassed. Wang Xian waved his arm again and the Emperor's bell shrank gradually under his control. In the end, the Emperor's bell landed in Wang Xian's hand. Wang Xian turned it in his hand before looking to the remaining group of people from the Yellow Sky Immortal sect. Were they involved in this previously? SSS. Upon hearing Wang Xian, everyone in the Yellow Sky Immortal sect couldn't help but take a step back in fear. Feng Jinqing's lips trembled as he said, "Your Excellency, Brother, that brat was fighting with me a while ago but called upon his elder when he couldn't win. Help me watch out for the rest while I spar with him again." Before Feng Jinqing could finish his words, Xiao Yu pointed at Feng Lingtian and was eager to fight again. Chapter 674, Opportunity for Marine Creatures. Chapter 674, Opportunity for Marine Creatures. When Feng Lingtian heard what Xiao Yu said, he flared. His facial expression switched from fiery redness to a pale-looking color. He stared at Xiao Yu, gritted his teeth and could not help but rage. "Let me tell you, lass. I'm ready to fight." Feng Lingtian raised the spiritual sword in his hand and bellowed angrily. "Fine." Xiao Yu narrowed her eyes and cracked her ivory whip before she observed Feng Lingtian with ill intentions. "I tell you don't," Feng Lingtian said with mixed expression. "Don't attack my face and butt." "Hee, isn't this the wicked prince from Huang Cauldron World? Why is he acting like a coward now?" Xiao Yu made a swift move and flicked her ivory whip at him. Feng Lingtian was aghast as he hurriedly lifted his spiritual sword to block the incoming attack. Pack. However, whips were not weapons that could be countered by usual weapons. Whips focused on twining and whipping. The spiritual sword was totally ineffective when it came to defending against whips. Wind sword circulating shield. Seeing that his weapon got wrapped around by the whip, Feng Lingtian released his sword while another 9 spiritual swords surfaced beside him. When the 9 spiritual swords spun in his surroundings at rapid speed, it formed a wind shield for defense. Do you think you can defend against it?" Xiao Yu snorted, and the tip of the ivory whip wriggled like a poisonous snake, darting straight at the spiritual swords. Xiao Yu's bones were far more compelling than any level 12 spiritual weapon, which were overkill for her opponents of the same level regardless of defense or attack. Damn. The ivory whip wriggled through the wind shields and attempted to wrap around Feng Lingtian's body. He could not help but let out a scream as he staggered back to dodge it. Pack. However, at this time the ivory whip transformed into devilish shadows, aiming for his butt area. "I said don't hit that place." Feng Lingtian growled furiously. Without a change in her expression, Xiao Yu flicked her whip again, aiming for his back. Darn. Feng Lingtian was in an embarrassing state. With a stagger he immediately ran away and hid. "Do you think you can run away from me?" Xiao Yu asked sarcastically. "Try chasing me." Feng Lingtian gritted his teeth. As he moved, wind-like shadows surrounded him as he flitted away. Xiao Yu remained unwavering. She swung her arm and swept out her ivory whip. Trying to catch up with me? That's impossible. Feng Lingtian ground his teeth with more and more shadows appearing around him. Instantly, a few hundred shadows were all over the place. Her? Xiao Yu was slightly stunned as she swept her whip at one of the shadows. The figure could not dodge it in time and vanished under her whip. Shadow drift is a battle technique developed by my father for fleeing. It's impossible to catch up with me. Feng Lingtian called out as he drifted again with figures covering more than 10 kilometers. Oh really? Xiao Yu did not believe his words. She moved her hand and her whip flicked even harder at those figures. After she struck down more than 10 figures, he was still nowhere to be seen. Seeing Xiao Yu getting anxious, Feng Lingtian was even more proud than ever. Haha, I told you so. I am formidable. You'll never be able to catch up with me. You? Xiao Yu was agitated. Brother, do you have any item to track this fellow down? Wang Xian slightly paused when he heard Xiao Yu. With a smile on his face, he swung his arms and tossed a level 12 water dragon ball to her. Brother? How do I use this? Asked Xiao Yu inquisitively. Roar. At this time, a roar was heard from the dragon ball. The dragon ball transformed into a 10-meter marine divine dragon while he roared into the sky. Dark clouds gathered instantly in the sky as rain began to fall. Her? Xiao Yu was slightly stunned as she saw the rainwater passing through all of Feng Lingtian's virtual shadows, which were wind-attributed. A cold smile surfaced on her face. Now let's see where you can hide. You cheat. You called upon your guardian. Upon seeing such a situation, Feng Lingtian was horrified as he exclaimed. We took turns. Now it's fair. There was slyness in Xiao Yu's eyes as she waved her ivory whip around. Each flick of her whip landed on Feng Lingtian. This? The people from Yellow Sky Immortal sect below the mountain twitched their lips. All of them were dumbfounded. The wicked prince of the Huang Cauldron world was getting whipped by a girl in the real world, and he had no means to resist it. His entire body swelled by 2 times, losing all its previous chic. He was the son of an immortal, a supreme talent of Huang Cauldron. This might turn out to be a good thing. Feng Jinqing threw a glance at Wang Xian and heaved a sigh of relief instead. A smile surfaced on his face. The beating that Feng Lingtian took might help them to avoid a crisis. Upon hearing the shrieks from the surroundings, Wang Xian shook his head with a grin. Since when did Xiao Yu have such a hobby? This was the first time he'd seen this. The rest of the girls, including Lan Qingyue, were smiling from ear to ear. Dragon King, we got a message from the Dragonians. There is another spiritual energy waterfall from the sky not far away from our dragon palace. At this time, Mo Qinglong appeared beside Wang Xian and reported to him. There's a spiritual energy waterfall in the sea. Wang Xian froze for a moment before radiance flashed in his eyes. Yes. Mo Qinglong nodded. Great. There was a tinge of excitement in Wang Xian's eyes. With a spiritual energy waterfall in the ocean, this might be an excellent resource for the entire Dragon Palace and marine race. Qingyue, Lingxiu, Ajaya, Elder Fong will be leaving soon. Are you guys going back? Wang Xian nodded with force as he swept his glance at those people from Yellow Sky Immortal sect. He drew his lips slightly. Another spiritual energy waterfall emerged from the sea. This could be a great advantage for the marine creatures. We will need to start planning for the Dragon Palace too. Xiao Yu, we're heading back. Wang Xian shouted to Xiao Yu, who was in the air, whipping Feng Lingtian with excitement. Yes, brother? Xiao Yu nodded and snorted coldly. I'll bash you up whenever I see you next time so you can remember my prowess. Feng Lingtian gritted his teeth as he trembled. Seeing his swollen body, tears welled up in his eyes. For the first time he'd been beaten so badly. Just you wait. I'll take revenge. Feng Lingtian lowered his head with determination as he clenched his fist. Hee hee. Xiao Yu chuckled with contempt. She flitted to Wang Xian and grinned. The 9 cauldron worlds will soon descend. In the future, the immortal sects will dominate the entire underworld. Since the underworld forces are weak, you can join any immortal sects for protection. Practice hard from now on. Wang Xian looked around at the martial artists of the underworld and reminded them. As soon as he finished his words, he nodded to Sui clan and Xiao clan before he hovered away. Behind him, Xiao Yu, Lan Qingyue and the rest of the dragon sect members followed. Wang Xian had to make full use of this opportunity for the marine creatures. Chapter 675, The Dolphin Princess, 1. Chapter 675, The Dolphin Princess, 1. The sea was vast and boundaryless with ample resources. In the legends there were various immortal islands where the immortals would live. Since ancient times, the sea was always filled with mysteries and attractions. On this very day, a pink yacht was steering on the sea without any particular destination. Melodious musical notes sounded and lingered in the surroundings, creating a perfect symphony with the sounds of the waves. At the edge of the pink yacht, a young girl in a white dull dress was standing on the deck on the second floor. Before her, a beautiful zither was placed. As melodious music sounded from her zither, she looked at the surroundings of the yacht with radiant smiles. Around her, several hundreds of dolphins were following the yacht. From time to time, dolphins would leap out from the water and look in the direction where the girl was. Since our Missy rescued this pod of dolphins from the herd of tiger whales, they have been following our Missy. Furthermore, the pod of dolphins has grown to over a few hundred. Look, there are pink and white dolphins. They are simply too cute and beautiful. Those are pink bottlenose dolphins while the white dolphins are the Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins. Both species are relatively rare dolphins. These dolphins know about gratitude and have been following our Missy. Moreover, they will jump out of the water from time to see our Missy from a distance. They are really cute. On the lower deck, a group of 4 to 5 girls stood looking exhilaratingly at these dolphins. Swoosh! At this moment, a pink dolphin jumped out of the sea beside the yacht. The 2-meter dolphin jumped over a height of a dozen meters towards the girl on the second level. Ding ding. The notes from the zither stopped suddenly as the girl was surprised to see the pink bottlenose dolphin. It had jumped over a dozen meters to come to the side of that girl. The girl flicked the zither lightly and a ball of seawater surrounded the dolphin and suspended before her. Wong wong. The pink bottlenose dolphin opened its mouth and a unique voice came from it. Huh? What did you say? You are bringing me to a place? The girl looked at the pink bottlenose dolphin with surprise as she extended her hand over to touch its head. Wong wong. Dolphins communicated through sound waves. However, at this very moment, it seemed capable of expressing something. It was extremely amazing. The girl was also taken aback. A dolphin jumping over a dozen meters high and even talking to her? That was truly strange. Follow you? Hearing the voice, the girl was shocked. The dolphin nodded its head brightly and wiggled its pectoral fins, signaling its desire to land. The girl nodded, flicked her fingers lightly on the zither and sent the dolphin into the sea. Wong wong. Several pink bottlenose dolphins and Indo-Pacific humpback dolphins in the sea looked towards her before swimming in a direction next to the yacht. Several hundreds of dolphins were leading at the front. Follow the pod of dolphins. The melodious voice of the girl was conveyed to the lower deck. Yes, Missy. On the lower deck, the female servants responded immediately. They steered the yacht and followed behind the pod of dolphins. How are these dolphins so smart? How did I understand a little about the sound waves they emitted? Moreover, what's their purpose of asking me to follow them? The girl in the white dress was astounded. If Wang Xian were here he would definitely recognize her. Tang Yinxian from the Heavenly Sound Sect. However, since the Heavenly Sound Sect had been annihilated, Tang Yinxian had returned home and kept herself distanced from the matters of the underworld. Even when the spiritual energy waterfall appeared in the underworld, she didn't think about exploiting this opportunity. As she was feeling bored about her dry life, she brought a few female servants with her to the sea to relax. Several days ago, she had saved a pod of dolphins from a herd of tiger whales. After curing them of their injuries, this pod of dolphins had been following her. Moreover, what truly shocked her was that this pod of dolphins was extremely intelligent. In fact, one could even say that they were rather strong. To be able to jump a dozen-odd meters in a single leap. That was not any weaker than a level 4 or 5 martial artist. These dolphins know about gratitude and are pure and cute. I can spend some time in the sea with them. Tang Yinxian showed a faint smile, placed both of her hands on the zither and started playing. Melodious musical notes could be heard once again. Wong wong. At this moment the dolphins in the sea seemed to be responding. This cheered Tang Yinxian up. However, what she didn't notice was that when the group of dolphins made their sounds, the surrounding water was changing and moving in the opposite direction of before. Dolphins were the smartest creatures in the sea. The dolphins in the vicinity of the Dragon Palace had learned about cultivation after being through a session of Tao preaching. In fact, some unique dolphins with great chance encounters had already become rather strong. The entire sea had started to change a little after the Dragon King preached Tao to the marine creatures. At this moment, Tang Yinxian suddenly felt a gush of spiritual energy. She lifted her head slightly, looked ahead and was filled with surprise. In the air some distance away, white-colored spiritual energy fell from the sky. Snow-white energy was falling on an island. The entire sea island was completely shrouded in the spiritual energy waterfall. In fact, in some areas, the water shrouded in the spiritual energy waterfall was a few thousand meters away from the island. The entire region was just like an immortal region on the sea or the immortal islands in the legends. This is a spiritual energy waterfall. There's a spiritual energy waterfall here. Tang Yinshuan's jaw dropped slightly as she revealed an exquisite look of shock. Wong Wong. At this moment she could hear the voices of several dolphins. Several pink bottlenose dolphins had turned around and were facing her. I'll be heading over now. Tang Yinshian hesitated for a few seconds before grabbing her zither, jumping off and diving towards the sea. Wong Wong. A dolphin exposed its back and the intention was clear. Tang Yinshian chuckled, landed on it and said, "Thank you, cutie." Wong Wong. A joyous voice came from the dolphin below her. Several hundred dolphins led Tang Yinshian towards the spiritual energy waterfall. Once they entered the region shrouded in the spiritual energy waterfall, the pod of dolphins was in ecstasy. Wong Wong. At this moment, Tang Yinshian realized that there were several hundred additional dolphins around this region. Several pink bottlenose dolphins and the Indo-Pacific humpback dolphin seemed to see her as their leader as they surrounded her. Wong Wong. You are asking me to dive down with you? Wong Wong. Alright, lead me down then. Gulp. Two pink dolphins swam to the sides of Tang Yinshian. Suddenly, they released a bubble from their mouths that surrounded Tang Yinshuan's head. I'm good. Let me do it myself. Tang Yinshian chuckled upon witnessing it. She had practiced water attribute cultivation arts after all. She would be fine even if she dived into the sea for several days. Seeing the cute dolphins surrounding her, Tang Yinshian felt extremely lighthearted. Spending time with simple creatures like them could help her forget any worries or displeasure. Chapter 676, The Dolphin Princess 2. Chapter 676, The Dolphin Princess 2. There are actually mountain ranges under the sea, and the spiritual energy waterfall is pouring into them. Many underwater creatures are gathered around here too. Tang Yinshian came to the bottom of the sea as she surveyed the surroundings with a face of surprise. There were all kinds of marine creatures rushing toward the spiritual energy waterfall. The marine creatures, after enlightenment, came close to the spiritual energy waterfall out of instinct. Buzz. More than 400 dolphins swam around and gathered at a mountain in the sea. These dolphins surrounded her in the center. To Tang Yinshuan's surprise, these dolphins began to cultivate. That's right. Cultivate. She could sense the dolphins guiding the spiritual energy into their bodies. Most surprising of all the dolphins gathered and released an ultrasonic wave that contained a unique kind of energy. This energy guided spiritual energy into their bodies. Instantly, a vast amount of energy entered their bodies. Tang Yinshian was dumbfounded as she quickly looked to another side. She noticed many marine creatures were cultivating, absorbing the spiritual energy. This was shocking to her. Did the living creatures in the sea know anything about the art of cultivation? Sensing spiritual energy was circulating around her, Tang Yinshian set aside her curiosity and sat beside the dolphins. All the dolphins were packed together while she sat on top, just like a dolphin princess. She sat cross-legged and began her cultivation. The spiritual energy waterfall was an ultimate chance encounter. Ding ding. Suddenly, the zither beside her let out a crisp and clear sound. She opened her eyes, feeling stunned. She sensed ultrasonic waves rippling above her, forming a special kind of control power. Sound had power too. Even though it was not part of the 9 attributes, sound could kill. Heavenly Sound Sect only knew a little about the use of sound. The rest was dependent on attributes. Take Tang Yinshian for instance. She was water attributed, combining water energy with sound as a means of combat. But the true combat capability still came from water energy. The sound only played the role of interference. However, the sound that the dolphins gave off could affect physical items, albeit small. She seemed to have some understanding as she placed her hands on the zither, playing special music that merged with the sonic waves of the dolphins. Instantly, Tang Yinshen and the dolphins' speed of absorbing spiritual energy sharply increased. Bouts of spiritual energy swamped their bodies. Their cultivation levels were boosted at a frenzied speed. After some time, she sensed a fierce aura around her as ferocious sharks swam over to her. The pod of dolphins panicked while Tang Yinshen remained unwavering. She closed her eyes and placed both hands on the zither, striking the incoming sharks with water ripples. Growl? The pod of sharks scattered in horror. The dolphins let out a thrilling sound as they looked up at Tang Yinshen before they continued their cultivation. Boom boom. Not knowing how much time had passed, one could hear battling coming from above while a terrifying aura spread out, striking fear into some marine creatures. Tang Yinshen sensed the domineering aura and had a slight change in her expression. Luckily I got them to leave first or else. She let out a sigh of relief and continued her practice. At this time, a few thousand people were gathering around the middle of the spiritual energy waterfall. 50-odd middle-aged and old men in peculiar clothes stood at the center of an island while white-colored spiritual energy fell upon them. Hayak. Right in the middle was an elder with a gray poisonous snake coiling around his neck. The viper stuck out its bloody red tongue that was half-meter long while the old man revealed a sinister smile as he stuck out his tongue too. His tongue was also of equal length as the viper and looked horrible. The old man then licked the tongue of the viper with his tongue. The scene looked extremely creepy. Beside him, more than hundreds of corpses were lying around on the floor. He craned up and stared at the spiritual energy waterfall, rolling his tongue. This chance encounter belongs to the creepy snake group. Don't think you can occupy it? Dashi, you had your chance encounter in China earlier on. Now. Haha, you don't even dare to set foot there. An old man who was wearing a red metallic mask with a red coat spoke with a sarcastic voice. This is not solely your chance encounter. Hayak alien, you can go to China and have a taste yourself. Both of you stop it. The three forces will divide this place equally. Any objections? At this time, a sharp woman's voice came from opposite the old man with a metallic mask. This woman was wearing extremely revealing clothes, exposing her baby skin. She looked extremely bewitching. The frightening things were her heads. She had two, one of which was extremely ugly and the other one was gorgeous. Dual-head Yen Mei, you need to ask Dashi if he has any objections, said the old man with the red mask. I want the spot at the bottom of the sea. Who dares to fight with me for it shall die. Dashi twisted his body like a snake as he rose into the air. My people, grab this opportunity and begin your cultivation. He let out a sharp voice. Boo. As soon as he finished his sentence, the sea snakes suddenly sprang out of the sea. Each of them was about 3 meters long with shirtless people sitting on them. There were mixed genders and their bodies were wound by snakes. Almost 500 people filled the entire region. 500 creepy snake palace guards trying to take over the marine region? Wouldn't that be a waste? A flame rose from the head of that red-masked elder. The flame formed a human figure, staring at Dashi with a pair of blazing eyes. Not at all. Ayak. You can also get your guys to cultivate with my men in the water too. It doesn't matter. Dashi wetted his lips. With a swift movement, he came to the sea right beside the island. With his triangular eyes, he stared at the red-masked elder and dual-headed woman. I welcome you to join me down here. Hee hee. A flick of flame flashed on Alien's mask as he turned to the dual-headed woman. Let's take the center as the dividing line, and we'll each occupy half. Fine. Once the three domineering forces finished their negotiations, they sat cross-legged and began their cultivation immediately. They didn't fight. Not so fast. We just made a huge commotion. Someone will be here soon. Even if there's no one, we can surely attract those immortal-class beings in the sea. Ah, I hope they fight. How wonderful to have immortal-class corpses. The group of people did not realize 2 pairs of bloodshot eyes were staring at them from above. Their eyes were filled with blood and appeared maniacal. The spiritual energy waterfall was an ultimate chance encounter to the cultivators in the real world. Similarly, it was an excellent chance encounter for the Cauldron world too. However, It was a terrible catastrophe to Tang Yinshen and the marine creatures in the ocean. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.